Okay? Countdown? Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the Goffstown Board of Selectmen meeting, September 12th, 2011. And if we can all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And at this moment, I'm going to make one slight change or addition onto the agenda, and I'd just like to have a moment of silence for all the people who passed away on September 11th, 2001. Thank you. Thank you. The next item is the acceptance of the correction of the public minutes of 8:29:11 and the public and the non-public of 9:6:11. So we can do 8:29:11 first. Do we have a motion?
Motion to accept 8:29 public minutes.
Is that with corrections or?
I have no corrections.
Okay, is there a second?
Second that, with no corrections.
With no corrections. Is there any discussion on these minutes?
Surely you're not looking at me for corrections.
I'm just asking if there are. If there are none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Oh, well, it's unanimous, so who's here? 4-0. 0. Okay. And the next is the public and the non-public, unless you want to hold off until we have a full board on these. We could just hold off. Perhaps I should have done that on the other one. All right, announcements. I'm not sure if we have any announcements. Do we have any announcements, Sue?
No.
Anybody on the board have any announcements?
No.
We don't have to worry about the 250th now. Okay. Public comment. Is there anybody here, members of the public, who would like to make a comment? No public comments? Okay, they're all shaking their heads no. Thank you very much. Okay, we have to accept a donation of $52.92 from an employee of BAE Systems for the Grassmere Town Hall Restoration Fund.
So move.
Is there a second? Second by Nick. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you very much.
And then
Yeah.
also authorize the chairman to sign the deposit voucher. That motion?
And
They've already taken their vote, maybe they could add another motion?
Motion to authorize the chairman to sign the voucher,
Is there a
as well
second?
as a letter of thank you.
Is there a second?
and second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Well, we can go on with the town administrator's report.
Okay. Your weekly meeting schedule's in your packet. Tomorrow evening, Sewer Commission, Wednesday's Budget Committee, and Thursday's 250th Anniversary Planning Committee. There will be an article in Thursday's Goffstown News about the 3 vacancies on the Budget Committee, so
Okay.
hopefully that will generate some interest. Consensus folder tonight is AP warrants, a thank you letter to Mr. and Mrs. Pascucci, and a letter to Mr. McEachran.
Motion to accept the consensus folder.
Is there a second?
Yes, second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. 4-0.
Assessor recommends veterans tax credit for map 6, lot 22-22.
Motion to accept the assessor's recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous, 4-0.
Thank you. At tab 5A in your packet, you have the MS4, which is the revised estimate of 2011 revenues. The finance director has prepared it, and I've reviewed it. The town had projected 2011 revenues of $7,646,008, but the revised estimate is down about $150,000. The two DRA account lines with the largest shortfalls are motor vehicle registrations, which are projected to be down about 88,000, and income from departments, which are down about 35,000.
I have a question on that, and I don't know if you know the answer, just out of, just curious. If the motor vehicle revenues
Mhm.
on that, and is it due to less registrations, or is it because there aren't as many new cars as there were last year?
I think it's mostly due to the fact there's not as many new cars, but
Okay.
I think registrations are really flat, and if not, a little down.
Okay, so, but relatively, people are registering the same vehicles that they
Mhm.
did last year. It's just a fact, because we did have a spike, because for a couple of years there, we had, people weren't buying new cars.
Right.
So we were off a little bit, then it spiked up. Okay, so that's, okay, thank you.
And,
Nick?
Nick, me.
Sue, on the expenditure side, do we anticipate a surplus to cover that shortfall?
Budget is really tight. I think the
Mhm.
budget's gonna be within 1%.
So how are we, if I may, how are we handling the shortfall?
Well, you can have that discussion one way. Well, first of all, I would say that you have one more month to watch revenues in motor vehicles to see if there's any changes, and also department revenues. So there's one more opportunity before you set the tax rate the first week of October to see if you want to revise any of these revenues. The other one that we're waiting to hear is how they're going to divide up that 3.5 million at New Hampshire Retirement System. We haven't heard that, and when that would be. Would that be this year, or would that affect your
Right.
revenue projection for next year? We haven't heard back from them on that yet. And I have no idea how much that would be, so
Right.
I don't know how much of a dent that would make. I would suggest that when it gets closer to tax rate setting time, that you can decide to use more of fund balance, because you have a healthy fund balance, to make up that deficit, and know that you usually always have at least that amount in surplus each year that you'd be adding back to fund balance.
There's also one thing also to add that, because this number is only for motor vehicle revenues. We're not talking about revenues from the town clerk.
Right, it's a motor
And
vehicle.
we're not talking about other offsetting revenues that we have also in other departments.
Well, income from departments is down, and that's, and like
Okay.
planning is
Oh,
down. and-
All right, I understand. I'm just, the only thing I wanted to make sure is that we're not just focusing in on those revenues. We need to focus.
But these are all revenues.
Yeah.
150.
Out of all the town revenues, we're down 149,000.
And last year, was it about 200 that we didn't spend out of the budget? Wasn't it around 200?
The surplus?
The surplus?
It was higher than that.
It was higher than that? Okay.
We're not
Well, that was
carrying.
my original
That's
question.
what, I
but
mean, I think that's where you were going, right?
We're not
Yeah.
anticipating a large surplus like that.
No, we always anticipate using 500,000 fund balance, because we always anticipate at least 500,000 in surplus. And we did have that last year. So what you'd be asking now is, well, we have 650,000 in surplus, and it's too early to tell right
Right.
now.
Okay, so,
Sue,
We always budget for
No,
rain.
no, I know.
the bottom part of this MS4 says there's a $1.5 million fund balance to reduce taxes. Is that a firm number, or can it be modified?
That can be modified. We used that money when we established the budget last year. We expected to use 500,000.
right, that was in the projection.
Yes.
Steve?
Yeah, okay, I just want to clarify. So that was in the projection, the 500, and I thought it was over 200, but you're saying it was more than that, so that came off the 500, correct? Right, all right, that's where
Right.
so what I'm trying to say is that we're projected this year with the same amount, and we expect some type of surplus
At year end.
at the year end, and you think it's going to be a wash with the 150 is what you're saying.
I'm saying it's
Well,
too
I mean,
early to
just
tell.
guessing, just roughly. We gotta wait and see, but we think it's gonna be some kind of a wash or close
Yeah,
to it.
I want to
Okay.
revisit revenues first
Okay.
week of October before we set the tax rate.
Right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Can we have this discussion later on when we go through the budget? We can bring this back up.
Okay, so you want to hold off on the authorization?
Oh, no, I mean, that has to go.
Yeah.
Right, okay, so, but we'll need that.
Oh,
need a
Well,
I'll
we
make a
will,
motion to authorize the finance director to sign and submit
Second,
the MS4.
it's not gonna make a
Be all
difference.
right, and just second?
Yeah, it's not gonna make a difference.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous, 4-0.
okay. This year, the tax rates are being set electronically due to the cutbacks at DRA. And what you've never seen is we've done it mostly electronically, except for that last day when you actually set it. We have always gone up to DRA. Now it will be done electronically. Therefore, what we have for a tentative plan is to provide the tax rate calculation worksheet to the board on October 3rd. And acquire the board's vote to proceed with the tax rate setting, and that's when you will decide how much of fund balance you want to use, and you'll have revised numbers, if there are any, on revenues.
I have a question up on that.
Mm-hmm.
This is gonna be a little different than we've done it in the past, because
Very
we've
different.
always done the setting with a face-to-face meeting,
Right.
whether it was here or
Okay.
at the DRA.
Yep.
So that's the portion that we're not doing.
Right, the face-to-face.
Okay, and how, I guess, there are sometimes when they do some calculations, they're looking at some of the numbers and the calculations on, sometimes with the special articles and things. So all of that is going to be done, when you say I understand what you mean by electronically, that you're doing this electronically, but are those discussions, are you gonna have those discussions by email? Are you gonna have the?
We always did. We had all those discussions prior to setting the tax rate. Everything was
Okay.
worked out. We knew the number the board wanted to get to for tax rate and what that meant in terms of use of fund balance. We had everything firm with the state numbers on their state revenue.
Well, I guess what I'm asking though, we've had that face-to-face meeting one time specifically, and they couldn't finalize the tax rate because they didn't have the numbers from one of the water precincts, if you remember. So how is that going to play
Oh,
out?
you can't even get into the queue to set the tax rate until every
Okay.
political subdivision in the town has submitted the forms that they need to submit to the state.
Right, I understand, but we have been times that we've been up there and they didn't have one of them from us, so everything was tentative until they reached that, so.
Well, the tax rate is always tentative until they verify it anyway,
Okay,
and that
fine,
takes a week.
Fine, I'm not making my point clear, I guess. That's
Well, they're
okay.
not gonna set the tax rate, Phil, unless all the documents are in from each of the political
Okay, we'll
subdivisions.
just see how.
You can't get into the queue, they said.
Okay,
And then
Okay.
electronically, we receive a verification that they're happy with the numbers.
Yes.
okay. All right.
Question, and this may be for Don. Since the town has seen a valuation drop of about 6%,
Mm-hmm.
there's gonna be could be a corresponding increase in the tax rate. Would most taxpayers, though, not realize a net increase or decrease because their valuation has dropped, even though the tax rate is?
If everything else was the same, that's correct. If your valuation went down 6.5%, I think is what it is, and so the tax rate would go up about 6.5%. But it doesn't mean any more or less out of pocket if everything else is the same. But we do know that the tax rate that was budgeted and approved at town meeting, especially on the school side, will be an increase in the amount of taxes people are paying this year.
Mhm. Understood.
Now, the only thing that might change, depending on the classification that you're in, if there's been a slight adjustment in that classification of housing, so that possibly might change.
Or if your valuation hasn't gone down.
You're right.
Compared,
Or if you did improvements to your house and the value of your home went up, yeah,
Right.
you're gonna pay more in that case.
But you would, even if the tax rate didn't change.
Exactly. But I understood your question is in terms of everything else being equal.
Everything else being, exactly.
Right.
Valuation went down, tax rate goes up, out of pocket should remain the same.
Right.
I was just bringing that up because sometimes people think that it shouldn't change, and if they get a change, it's possible that the classification that they're in,
That's changed.
that whole classification may have had a slight
If
adjustment.
their classification changed and went down by more than 6.5%, the average, then they'd see a savings if it went up more.
Right, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Okay. Alternate to the planning board. Enclosed, you have RSA 673-6, Roman 3, regarding the appointment of a selectman alternate to the planning board. Does the board, we didn't do this year.
Right.
And we had an occasion last week where Phil could have used an alternate, because he was away on business. Does the board want to
Well,
appoint an alternate?
yeah, the only thing though with it is, just so that the board is aware, if you are an alternate to the planning board, that doesn't mean that you only have to go when the regular member is not there, because you can, by statute, you can go and you can participate in the discussion, you just can't vote. So, I guess the thing is that, if a person isn't going to, be that involved in it, okay, the point that you just fill in as an alternate could potentially be an issue.
You're not
Is
up to speed.
if you came in and you vote and you were there and it happens to be, let's say, the third time a particular project's in, and it's a time for a vote on the project and you voted on the project, okay? Then again, you may say, well, I wasn't here, so I'm gonna abstain on it. So in the long run, when you look at the total picture of it, what is the value of the alternate, okay? If somebody that's very interested in the planning process, wants to learn more about the planning process, and you just don't have enough meetings, and you wanna go, I mean, it's, I'm just saying, you know, what's involved in it, and that's why, you know, we hadn't done it, but then again, hopefully, it's the only one that I do miss. Was the one that I had last week, so it's, you know, it might be something that we might wanna consider. We don't have a full board right now, but I'm sure the person that's, not here is going into their busy season, so, I don't think it's something, but you never know. Nick?
Just a quick question, does the selectman alternate operate similar to the other planning board alternates? In other words, if there are not enough full members, they appoint various alternates, or is it only when?
Only for the selectmen.
Only,
is not
the
there?
planning board does not have the authority to appoint an alternate to fill in a missing selectman who's not at the meeting.
Gotcha.
Only the selectmen can appoint, the board of selectmen can appoint an alternate
No,
for them.
excuse me, I'm sorry, I probably didn't explain myself. Let's assume we picked an alternate.
Right.
So we had two individuals. That alternate who was sitting at the planning board meeting on an evening where there were not enough full members, typically the chairman will say, these alternates are now voting today on this. Would that
So
alternate,
the selectman would get 2 votes?
that's my
I think
question,
so.
would
I
they
think
be able
so.
to
Yeah,
operate?
I don't
Okay.
think so, because there's 2 issues there. Number one, the one issue is, as Sue mentioned, the selectmen having 2 votes, which is not the makeup of the planning board. When you read the statute, it has 1 member from the governing body. And the other thing is that, that person is not a member of the planning board, therefore would not be able to,
Okay, that's why I wanted to clarify that, so they're not a true alternate. It's
of
just
the
a
planning board,
of
you're
the planning
alternate
board.
of the
Alternate
Board of
selectman.
Selectmen's
Understood.
rep
Thank
to
you.
the planning board, right. So you might want to just think about that, okay?
The other item that I didn't put in my report, but it's becoming an issue, people are calling, believe it or not already, they wanted to know the trick-or-treat hours, so I asked Chief Sullivan what he'd recommend to the board, and he said he recommends holding it on Monday, October 31st, from 6 to 8.
That's what we had last year.
It was Monday last year, too?
No, I meant hours.
Yes, same hours,
It
yes.
wasn't a Monday,
Yeah.
it was a weekend.
So we're gonna have it on Monday. It's Monday, 6 to 8, and I hope the board gets dressed up. We did the last time,
The meeting, yes.
yep.
I'll wear my
And we had the
pumpkin,
bowl of candy for all the
I'll wear my
little
pumpkin
kids.
regatta uniform.
Yep, we used to meet upstairs, where IT is now, and we had a daytime meeting, and we were having a meeting, and the parade was coming down,
That's right.
and we stopped the selectmen's meeting
That was years ago.
for the
We've had
Halloween
Dave-
parade, and there were people going to the town clerk's office across the hall, and with the kids, and they'd look in and they see us dressed up, and a bowl of candy, and we tell them, come in, you know, they could have a bowl of candy, piece of candy, you know, it was an experience. Anyway, next.
So you're fine with that date and time?
Okay, motion?
Who sets the date for that?
We always get the recommendation of the police chief, and the Board of Selectmen sets a date.
I mean, honestly, I respect the chief, but, you know, having kids and always done the Halloween thing, I always liked it on the weekend myself personally, but that's just besides the point.
It's the Halloween night.
It's not Halloween.
I understand that, but, I mean.
Listen, you don't know what we went through to get it back to Halloween from what it used to be.
There's just something about little kids running out in the streets at 6 o'clock at night.
Good.
During
Well,
traffic
then you
coming
could-
home,
you-
traffic coming home. That's just my personal view, but you guys, whatever you wanna do, I'm fine.
Is there a motion? For trick or treat to be 6 to 8 on Monday?
Monday
Motion
the
to
31st.
accept the police chief's recommendation for setting the Halloween trick or treat for 2011.
From 6 to 8.
Monday,
Right.
6 to 8.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Is there any further discussion?
There's also the fear of you in a
Okay.
costume, but that's besides the point.
Some may argue we don't need one.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous, 4-0.
Since I'm investing in a costume for the pumpkin regatta, maybe I can give out the town hall candy.
There you go.
Well, you know what? You could always have the Frosty costume.
Right, we're frosty.
I really want that.
Does the board have a preference this year in deliberative session? It has to be held between Saturday, February 4th, and Saturday, February 11th.
What day did we have last year? Wednesday?
Wednesday, yes. Because we
And
thought the school was doing Monday, but they ended up doing Saturday.
do we know what they're doing?
Not yet.
When do we have to let them know?
I can call Stacy and see what their preference is, but I didn't know if you had a preference.
Monday.
Excuse me, Sue, I'm looking at a February calendar now. What were
Traditionally,
the
when we do
limits
our-
of the date?
The limits are between February 4th and February 11th,
That's 1 week,
those Saturdays, yeah.
Saturday to Saturday.
right?
I'll go on Nick. I'll go on Monday.
Don't we traditionally
We used to
use the
do
Mondays?
Mondays, and then we got off to doing Wednesdays.
Well, we tried some different days, trying to see if
Tried a
we.
Saturday.
if
We tried a
got-
Saturday, and
Yeah, yes, it didn't. It basically is what happened when we tried in the past. So, we've had Wednesdays, and one of the things with Wednesdays is it does a conflict with other meetings, scheduled meetings. So, if you want to do Monday, it's probably got the least,
okay,
so we have 2 days for
conflict.
Monday, then the 4th or the 7th, or the 11th?
No, 6th,
it'll be the 6th.
6th of February,
Mhm.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I
4th to the 11th, so.
And we
6th
usually,
is-
we do a snow date on Thursday.
Okay, so we're looking at the 6th, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Good.
And,
Okay, let me check with the school and see if it's available and if they're okay.
okay. All right,
That's all I have for tonight.
that's all you have for tonight. Okay, well. Okay. We might as well move on to selectmen's discussion then. Or we might have, Nick,
Mr. Chairman, Selectman Gross is not here yet.
I know.
With the will of the board, could we delay the discussion and vote on the ordinance until such time after his arrival? Or after the budget presentations?
Mhm.
Well, we could, but then we're not gonna have the budget presentation until 7 o'clock.
Okay, I was just thinking that it might be.
No, I understand what you're saying. I was looking at that myself too, and just no matter what we do, we might have to open it up for another discussion, but,
We have plenty of time for this because it's the year 20,120.
okay.
Little typist mistake on our
Yeah,
minutes
none of
here.
us-
Missed it on
none
the
of us
TA
will-
report.
yeah, I know.
Get it on the agenda.
Yeah,
None of us will be around
It's such a
then.
long process.
yeah.
We gave ourselves room.
Do we?
I have another piece of old business. At the last meeting, I had volunteered to speak with Kent Nolan regarding the Wallace Road roundabout.
Oh, last week? Okay,
Yes.
I wasn't
You
aware
were
of that,
not.
okay.
And I did have an opportunity to speak with him, and the plans are still in the works to proceed with a flagpole with a low-voltage lighting, with an appropriate size flag. There's a ratio of flag size to flagpole, and he understands the restraint or the constraints of the guy wire,
Right,
and also a memorial. So he was going to get back to me as to the turnaround time for the plaque. He's also working on a fundraising race, road race, a 5K road race. So that plan for the memorial is still in the works.
Okay.
It has not been,
Do we know if it's, is it holding up any plans or anything that the garden club wanted to do? Do we know anything about that?
They've done their plantings for this year already,
Well,
so
yeah, but I know,
I assume this will be next year,
unless they were doing.
the hope is to try to get it done before Memorial Day
of next year.
of this year.
Memorial Day's May.
I mean, of
Right.
of this year, thank you.
Right.
Or Veterans Day. Did you mean Veterans Day this year? Because that's in
Boy.
November.
Now my memory is gone. I'll
Oh,
have to
okay.
check with Kent again
Okay.
which one he meant.
Okay, all right.
But my understanding is, I believe the hope is to try to get it done this year.
Oh, okay.
But it doesn't require water, so power is already there, so I don't think it will hold anything up as far as completion of the.
Okay, but I just, so that there's
Around it.
some coordination with them, what their plans are in the garden club, so
Yeah,
we
'cause
don't have a conflict
They
there.
may have to relocate
Is-
some of the
is-
flowers depending on where that memorial is
There's-
going, right?
There's a void of flowers in the center
Oh, okay.
already.
Okay, but I just want to make sure that they are
Coordinated,
communicating with
yeah.
each other. So, perhaps.
Yes, and I placed a call. I couldn't reach Carl today, but I wanted to see if there was some coordination there
Anything
as
calls
well.
out of town.
Yeah.
Vacation for 10
Yeah,
days.
I'll touch base with him
Okay.
when he gets back.
All right, do we have any non-public?
Nope.
Okay, we can't even do that now for half an hour.
You know, we can start, Dawn and I, because really the library and Parks and Rec were coming in for 7. So if we have time, we can start with the overview and
All
the
right.
revenues.
And then Don can leave here maybe by 7.
There you go.
See that? How's that? You left before you got here.
No, it's not.
You want to start with that?
That sounds fine to me.
And I hope you all didn't have cardiac arrest when you saw the budget.
The 35% increase.
Well, if you discount the CIP and special articles.
You know, you shouldn't say that while we're on the air, because,
It's like 3.75%.
Sorry?
If you discount the CIP and special articles, the increase is like 3.75% over the previous year.
CIP is in the budget.
I know, but if you just look at the operating lines above CIP, it's a 3.75. It's because we've deferred so many capital expenditures over the years that it's catching up with us, and that's why the budget looks like it looks. I'd like to just go through the budget assumptions that will be applied to each department, and as you go through and hear the presentations, these are the assumptions for all departments. Regarding wages, they've been frozen for all employees, except for when there's contracts in place, and for the library employees who are calculated with step increases. Regarding employee hours, there is in this budget a reinstatement of funding for the police officer position from July through December. Also reinstate ACO as a contracted service, additional hours for cemetery seasonal employees.
which one was that? Could you-
Pardon?
Which was the one you just mentioned?
The last one I mentioned was additional hours for cemetery seasonal
Just be
employees.
prior to that one.
Reinstate ACO.
No.
That's-
yeah.
It's,
They're
You should have
listed.
In the very beginning of your book.
It's
Yeah.
before tab 1.
second page, after the table of contents.
I'm sorry, I apologize. I was looking for that and I couldn't find it.
I can give this to you afterwards.
Okay,
Okay?
stick to the script.
Actually, you have the budget, don't you? You have a budget book?
No.
Okay. All right, so, the ACO as a contracted service, additional hours for cemetery seasonal employees, additional hours for Parks and Rec seasonal employees, and then 6 additional hours per week for a GTV videotaper. We assumed benefit increases of 12%, that's an estimate at this time, for health insurance.
Okay.
Workers' comp insurance, the formula was to use the 2011 classification rates times 9%, which is the capped amount that it can go up under the TRIM program, times the mod rate of 0.85 minus our 20% discount for being in the TRIM program. The assumption for property liability insurance is the 2011 actuals times 9%, which again is a capped amount of an increase, plus the deductibles, and the deductibles are different for each department. I mean, it's a $1,000 deductible, but the number of deductibles that we budget is different for each department, so you'll hear that when you go through. Electricity, we use the 2011 budget times 5%, unless it was tracking differently. If we felt like the current budget had enough in there, we didn't have to increase it by 5%, we didn't. Heating oil, we took the 3-year average for consumption times 3.338 per gallon. That was based on the rejected low bids on June 6th. You will, again, have an opportunity to adjust that to our current contract rates when the board's done their budget. Propane, again, we used a 3-year average for consumption times 2.215 per gallon based on the rejected low bids on June 6th. And now we have more current numbers, which is slightly lower. Gasoline, 3-year average times 3.175. This is based on our current contract that the board adopted on 3/8. Same with diesel, 3-year average of consumption times 3.385, again based on the number in the 3/8/11 contract. Before you conclude, we will probably have other numbers for gasoline and diesel. The other thing I wanted to mention is the New Hampshire retirement system rates. We have gotten those rates, and you will see that Group 1 employees, the employer rate is 8.8%. Group 2 police is at 19.95%, and Group 2 fire is at 22.89%. And all of police and fire is in this budget. There is no state contribution. So you will see a marked increase in police and fire retirement. With that said, I think John could come up and tell us about revenues and his projection for revenues for 2012.
Should I sign in?
Yeah, we know who you are.
Okay. Thank you, Sue. Since this is my first time through the budget formulation process, I first want to thank all of you for your patience during the process. I've learned a lot about it already. It's obvious to me that there's a lot of input from various boards, people, staff members, and so forth. So that's why we're here tonight to talk about the anticipated revenues.
Just realize why Sue had you come up at the single table over here. We're sitting a little low, just.
If you would like to be at a higher table, feel free.
Wherever you'd like is fine.
No, it's up to you, wherever you feel more comfortable.
No, this is fine.
I'm just teasing you.
That's okay. Couple of things. My goal here is to present a rather broad overview of some of the revenues. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail, but I would refer you to two items. One is the 2012 town revenue other than property taxes page, which is a summary, which is right in the beginning of the budget book. The other item, of course, is Chapter 9 in the budget book, which goes into a little bit more detail in terms of the line-to-line projections on these revenues. I'm certainly open to input as we go through the process, not only from you as a board, but from any of the other boards or staff members, Sue, anyone that has input into it. I do consider these numbers flexible at this point in the process. I expect adjustments to be made, and I think that's a normal part of the process from everything I've been told so far, so I think that's to be expected. The numbers that we have come up with for revenues are based basically on 3-year trend analysis, as long as I mean, as well as the look at the tracking year-to-date through the end of August for the revenues. And the comments that I'm making this evening, I think I should point out, apply only to the general fund. That is, I'm not talking about the sewer or the EMS revenues or the Parks and Rec revolving fund or any of those, only the general fund. The first number, I think, to take a quick look at, and this is again on the tracking sheet, I would call your attention to the 2011 and 2012 budget columns, and you'll see that the budgeted amounts have gone from about 5.345 million for the general fund only to about 5.370 million. So there's an overall increase there of about 25,000, and I think you've probably already seen that. What's interesting, of course, is where are the differences? What's gone up? What's gone down? What's anticipated in each direction? That's what I want to spend a few minutes here talking about. I have 7 areas, and again, there's more detail in the book, so I'm going to hit kind of I'll call it a 10,000-foot level here on the revenues and go from there. The first area that I noticed was the expected motor vehicle revenues. It's no secret we're in a bad economy and fewer people are buying cars and so forth, so that we do expect, we have budgeted approximately $70,000 lower for 2012 on that revenue. That revenue is the biggest single source other than property taxes. So it's an important thing to take a look at. We've done that. We feel reasonably comfortable with these projections. The second area I would call transfers from other funds. Now, this is one that will fluctuate from year to year. We do anticipate, at least on the information we have so far, that there won't be as many of these either, particularly in 3 different specific areas. We have decreased the amount. There was an annual reimbursement from the EMS Special Revenue Fund to the general fund, which has decreased by approximately $45,000. The second piece of that is the $142,000 from the capital reserve that was in the budget for 2011 for the fire truck. At least at this point, we're not aware of any special articles that might have capital reserve offsets for 2012, so that piece has gone away. Thirdly is the $25,000 from the Mildred Stark Fund, which was in the budget this year for the renovations and restructuring of the town hall offices and so forth. And we're, again, at this point in the process, we're not aware of that either. So when you take all 3 of those amounts collectively, they total approximately $210,000. So again, that's a decrease.
Just one, I know we have 2 projects going on in town
Yeah.
hall. That Mildred Stark Trust Fund money was for the HVAC.
For the
It doesn't only do
HVAC.
maintenance.
I apologize.
Okay.
Thank you for that correction. The next area, and this is one where, again, we're probably going to have more information on this as we go further through the process, is the area of expected grants. At this point, the fire department grants, we're not aware of as many as there were this year. For example, the radio and the SAFER grants. There is, from what we have so far, a decrease there. That's offset by a good increase from DPW for the road grant money that is anticipated to be received. That's an increase of about $375,000 there.
And
So
that was
again,
the CMAC grant.
CMAC, yes. And the other area that I'm going to hit the decreases first and then some increases. This isn't all bad news. The last piece of bad news is the state has reduced our highway block grant as a result of the no more $30 fee with registrations, basically. So there's a decrease there of approximately $71,000. So we have budgeted that has dropped from about in the $425,000 to $430,000 range down to closer to about $350,000 or $360,000. I can't remember the exact figure we put in, but it's pretty close to that. Yeah. So there's a decrease there, an expected decrease there. On the positive side, we have seen that the recycling revenue is tracking very well this year. It's ahead of schedule. So we did anticipate an increase on that line for 2012 by approximately about $12,000 more than we had this year. Another area that we anticipate an increase in is the police special details. What with the expected required coverage for additional presidential elections and so forth, we anticipate more revenue, probably at least $30,000 worth, in addition to what we had in 2011. So that's, again, on the positive side. The last one that I wanted to hit on briefly, which is, I think, more of a neutral at this point, because we don't know what they're going to do yet, is as you know, the New Hampshire, state of New Hampshire took away the state's contribution to the Group 2 retirement. And it is our understanding at this point that there is a pot of money, about $3.5 million, that's been supposedly set aside to be allocated amongst the municipalities. Well, how's it going to be allocated? How much is our share? Well, we don't know, at least today. In fact, I just put in an email to them today and a phone call, neither of which were returned, unfortunately. I was hoping to have an answer tonight on this, but we do expect to hear from them with more detail on that area. So if that comes in, if we're told that reimbursement or contribution or whatever you want to call it is going to come in this year, we might potentially be able to use that against the tax rate this year. If not, then we'll go from there.
Question, Don, going
Sure.
back to police operations, when you mentioned about the special detail, did I hear you correctly when you said special detail, the projected revenue was up about 30,000?
Yes, approximately.
Well, what's
yes.
making up the difference from 176 to 279?
That's
more than
probably
30.
grant money in there. There were some other ones that had some small differences in there.
Okay.
Which page are we looking at?
Well, I'm looking at the
The summary,
the
On
summary.
the summary, yeah?
section 9.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
State grants are up.
Oh, sure. Yeah, the state grants and the detail, right, combination.
10.
Thank you.
Yep. And that was basically the extent of the specific areas that I had planned to talk about, but I'm happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
Any questions? Tom?
Just a quick question. I know we're estimating, and it's just kind of a snapshot,
Right.
but tonight when we looked at the estimated revenues on the,
Motor vehicles?
the motor vehicles,
Mm-hmm.
we're estimating that we're down this year 88,000. But in next year's revenue, we're estimating a drop of 72. So if we're taking the same snapshot at the same time, why would we not estimate the same shortfall next year that we're seeing this year?
Well, to get the amounts for this year, what we did was we took the year-to-date through the end of August, divided it by 8, then multiplied by 12. So for purposes of estimating on the MS4 this year, for tax rate purposes, we came up with, I believe it was, we were using $2,300,000, which the actual number was coming in at about $2,310,000. We didn't want to overshoot it, so we chose that for an estimate, an updated estimate for this year for tax rate purposes. In terms of the 2012 budget, we, let's see, where was the figure we had for that one?
Well, I was just looking at the motor vehicles, which was singled out as one of the larger shortfalls, which was down $88,000.
Right.
I wouldn't anticipate next year's economy to be much better than this year's, and if we're estimating an $88,000 shortfall now, why would we not use that same estimated shortfall for next year? I understand we averaged 3 years, and, you know, things were better 2 years ago
Right,
or
right.
3 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a 20,000.
We'll take a look at that.
Yeah, we
Again,
could
we're-
take a look at it.
We're gonna revisit that MS4 number when we
Right.
have another month of
Sure.
revenues in for motor vehicles, and it may
Absolutely.
be going up by that same amount that
Right.
that difference between the two numbers.
Understood, but I think it would be
I understand.
prudent to make them both match, and then if one gets revised upward, revise the other one upward as well. You know, since we're estimating at the same time, period of time.
We can do that.
Any other questions? I guess you're done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don.
Yeah,
Appreciate it
thank
very
you.
much. I'm sure we'll probably have some questions for you.
No, absolutely.
You can stick around if you want.
No thanks, right?
Oh, you're gonna take Scott's seat, that's good. When Scott comes in, he can sit in your seat. Okay.
Okay. See how it goes for September.
That doesn't have, I can't use these to come up with the differences.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don, on the. Yeah,
279, 279.
right, but that's only telling me for the 1 year. 12, 11.
Well, you know it's getting tough.
That should
Divorce
be your
certificates are
document
going
here.
down.
176.
Yeah, okay, this is it. Okay, thanks. Okay. And what was the other thing that you wanted to do that overview, Sue?
I already did it, the assumptions and the,
All right, you didn't have anything else?
not at this point, it's too early.
So we can
to
take a
really-
10-minute break?
Yes, you can.
They're all saying they're ready.
Well, we could do that. If you're all here, you're not expect. Well, we could. Yeah, we don't have any reason. The only thing was, we don't have anything that constrained the time being a public hearing or anything.
No,
And everybody else is here, so might as well. Is that okay? That's up to you.
You're gonna love it.
It's up to you.
Chief, are you here for something other than budget?
Right,
Thank you.
right. He comes to, right. Right, he comes to keep us company.
Sorry, you missed public comment.
Good evening.
Good evening, thank you for having us.
You're welcome. And, you know, all of you have been here before, so you kind of know the routine.
Tess Martz.
You're welcome.
Lisa Iodice.
And?
Diane Hathaway, Library Director. I, however, do not carry a gun, so
Part of convincing.
Yeah.
that was part of our little issue in the back.
Do we have our new copies of the numbers? Do we share those here?
They already have your budget.
Lisa's gonna start. I'm gonna do some highlighted areas.
Okay.
And we'll go fast.
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to give a library budget process overview for 2012. So as the Board of Trustees prepared the budget, we kept several things in the forefront of the discussion. The taxpayers, which we all are, the rising needs of the public, and this is shown statistically in our numbers. And the numbers I'm going to give are for 2011 versus the same time period for 2010. We had a 9% increase in card holders, an almost 7% increase in circulation, an almost 11% increase in the number of reference transactions. There was a 24% increase in programs offered, and this brought along an 11% increase in attendance. This had a 4% increase in children's programming, and the attendance increase for that was 6%. And for adult programs, it was an almost 23% increase in the programs, and a 7% increase in attendance for those programs. And as we prepared the budget, we also knew that we needed to be mindful of the increased burden on staff that these needs brought. The library has not added any new staff positions in 8 years, and in 2011, we lost 5 staff hours due to budget cuts. And while some of the technological improvements are still being baselined with new software that measures things more accurately, the network usage and the web page counts, the improvements in the world of technology in general have placed increased demands on staff. People look for assistance with their e-readers, whatever type they may have. They look for assistance with job searches online and with preparing their resumes. So taking all of this into consideration, the Board of Trustees believes the library is a core resource to taxpayers that have been hard hit by the economic downturn and to the community as a whole. The Board of Trustees took all of the above into consideration when preparing our 2012 budget, trying to balance the rising needs of the community while putting together a responsible budget. Therefore, the budget that we have submitted to the Board of Selectmen is what we believe an appropriate budget based on the needs of the community for 2012. The board voted for a budget that was a 3.86% increase over our 2011 budget, and that amounts to a dollar amount of a little over $26,000. Due to the revenue generated by Cassie, which is a software program that allows us to more accurately assess printing charges to patrons, and, excuse me, trust fund revenue, this results in a bottom line increase of 3.38%, a dollar amount of slightly less than $23,000. And it's important to note that wages, benefits, and lines that are beyond our control, such as heating, oil, water, sewer, property insurance, make up over $13,000 of the 3.86% increase. So the Library Board of Trustees stands behind their proposed 2012 budget as what best balance the needs of the community with the needs of the library as a whole.
So, let's talk about the areas that you're going to see differences in. And if you'll indulge me, I'd like to start by skipping over all the 4,100 lines, all the wage lines. I will address them, but I'll address them at the end because that's obviously our biggest difference. So the areas that I'm going to talk about are strictly the lines over which the library has control, and I promise I will go quickly and completely. The first one is our employee development line, 44300. I forgot your name. Kathy, we'll give you a copy of this.
We'd really appreciate it.
Employee development line is conferences, training, tuition reimbursement. This is volatile only in biannual years as there is a conference coming up, and that's the only volatility we've had historically. This year coming in, we're looking for an increase of $3,000 for tuition reimbursement. We have one professional librarian on staff, despite having a very stable and truthfully a very senior staff network. Our staff does not turn over quickly. We have one employee with interest in looking for her MLS while staying in the community with an investment and intent to remain in Goffstown. We believe it's in our best interest to retain our key staff and to have a safety net should Diane not be on the premises or not be available if Diane has a medical emergency. Our job descriptions have recently been all revamped over the last 12 or 18 months. Our three lead people, our head librarian, our head of adult services, and our head of youth services, in their job description all say an MLS or graduate degree or equivalent. We don't have that. We only have Diane with an MLS. So we truly believe the tuition reimbursement benefit that is offered to town employees, and our employees come in under that same package, is a cost-saving measure, so that should we need to replace someone, we are moving from in-house and saving money. For an employee to take these benefits, they must have department head approval. Diane fully supports this particular employee. She's been with us since 2007 and needs to be in the program in order to receive any job promotion in the event that a retirement or change of personnel happens. So that's why we are looking for tuition reimbursement while we know it may be a departure. The next line we have control over is 44800. That is all travel, local and distance. We are looking for nothing in that line beyond what we have had historically. 47110 is Staples sorts of things, office supplies, things that you would buy at Staples to run any sort of office. That has been consistent for the past 3 years. We are not looking for an increase. 47120, operating supplies. That's library-specific material, book covers, security packaging, replacement covers. That has been consistent since 2005. We are looking for no increase. Postage, 47340. We're looking for a $150 increase just because we have set in place a policy that should we incur the cost of postage, we will pay that, but we will have the patron pay us back. So essentially, that should be a wash, but postage is going up if they make it through the end of the year. Sorry, post office people. So we have a slight increase in there. Books and publications, 47400. Those are books, periodicals, newspapers, audio, ebook content. In 2009, that line was cut from $43,000 to $39,000. There have been no adjustments for inflation since then. We're looking for a $4,000 increase. That will bring us back to the level we had in 2007 funding. Ebook content is the highest growing segment of circulation for our library and for, I think, the entire industry. We have curtailed acquisition of new books and materials for years in response to the budget constraints, but it's starting to look like a tired collection. Yes, sir?
The last time that went up was, I thought you said it's been.
It was cut.
It's been at the 39,000 for several years.
It was cut in 2009 to
2 years is at that
39. So this increase will bring us back to the 2007 level, is what I have. And Sue is our silent but historic record keeper, and she's like, yeah, that's right. So every now and then I'll just look to a compatriot. So we're looking to come back to 2007, aren't we all? Probably more stated in that statement than anything else. Furniture and fixtures, 48440. That is typically a response to any broken things in the building. We are not buying any new equipment in that. That has had $350 added in 2006, I think. We are looking for no increase. A couple of items, a couple of our lines, we have been able to improve within the building because in 2008, the staff wrote and received the Findlay grant. That's an area that we were able to do some major, for us, improvements in our equipment by using Findlay grant money. So we have had some improvements to our chairs and that sort of bookcases through that, but not using any of the town money. This year, obviously, no increase. 48,450, computer and communication. That's software upgrades, hardware purchases, some of the network maintenance, public Wi-Fi access, office automation. We have reduced that line this year by 250. In 2004, we had an increase of 10,000 for the last 3 years. It's been less than 7,000. We have done a conscientious reduction as warranted in that line, and our hardware costs have decreased. Yippee-yi-yay. So obviously, you're not going to have a problem with that line. I'm just celebrating it. Our advertising line, 49400, that's for public hearings, legal notices, job postings. That's been stagnant since 2004. We have been caught underfunded already this year in that line. We had a job that we needed to post. The cost of one ad was in excess of what we had in that line. The more frightening part for me on this line is that if someone leaves us a generous donation in a will or bequest, we are required by law to have a public hearing, which requires a posting. And anybody out there who would like to leave us a generous request, please come talk to us. So one cost of an ad is in excess of what we have in that line. So we're looking for another $450. And that's that for that line. The next line over which we have control is building maintenance charges, 55310. The elevator is in that. We're not otherwise ADA compliant if our elevator goes out. Our HVAC, we have some migratory chimney swifts that are giving us great excitement as big trucks rumble by. That line has had historically incremental increases every 2 years with two major expenses. Painting of the trim had to be done, and the floor heating for radiant energy efficiency. Those were the other big things in the last many years. No increase for this year. Maintenance other than the building, 55320. That includes tree removal, landscape cleanup, items beyond the generosity that DPW have done for us. They have been very good and generous neighbors to us. That line has been consistent since 2004, except for a repair to the rock retaining wall. That rebuild was in 2006. There's no increase in that line for this year. Maintenance supplies, 55510, bathroom supplies, cleaning, carpeting, cleaning. That was increased in 2010, slightly no increase for this year. Programming, 71100. We do programming for children, preschool, school age, teens, family programming, adults, and senior programming. That line has been consistent since 2007, despite patron increased usage going into the double digits. A lot of the Finley money was used for programming historically as well. We are not looking for an increase this year in that line. We have had fluctuating attendance in our programming this year, especially our summer programming. Apparently, all of the consortium libraries in our GMILKS family have seen drops in their attendance. Ours has not been a consistent fall. We've had some increases and some decreases. As a result, the staff intend to review and revamp all of the programming that we run. We would anticipate a change in this number next year, but for now, I think it's prudent just to stay the course and keep our programming where it is. That brings us to the last line over which we have control, and that is regular wages, 41100. This is obviously our biggest departure from the town. Our dollar increase for this year that we are looking for is $7,569. Library staff hours have been trimmed for the past 3 years, reducing our staff numbers by a net of 22 hours. Our staff have done miracles with this RIF as far as we are concerned. They have realigned coverage, they've realigned programming, we've changed hours of operation to accommodate all of that reduction in force. I want to add, on a personal note, we don't have a break room for our staff. If they want to eat lunch without walking to their car or underneath the chimney swifts and squirrels out front, They sit behind a brick wall that is not the size of this table that I'm at to eat their lunch with patrons, with other staff. There is very little respite for our staff. The director doesn't have a door on her office. There's no private spot in there unless you count the second floor bathroom, which is prime real estate if you ask me. But it's not open most of the time. Our performance reviews are done annually. They are done by the director, the results reviewed by the full board. We ask much of our staff. We receive that and more from them. Last year, we held firm that they needed a COLA increase. Ultimately, the town came to that same decision for their non-union staff. We felt steps would be a less costly increase this year and provide some protection to our most vulnerable and valuable employees. They have worked hard to work with us and within our constraints. We uphold our obligation to them by asking for those steps increases. Total dollar value in the wage line, $7,500 and change. So those are the lines, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 14 lines that we have control over. Most of the changes that we ask for are in the wage line. We do have tuition reimbursement, which will bring us to a $1,000 line. Beyond that, our increases in 3 lines are less than $500. So I'm happy to take questions. I will give you a handout of this graph that I just gave
Okay.
you. Or
That would be
Diane
great.
will, Diane, you want to do that now? And I'll take anything you've got. If it's global, if it's number specific, you don't want me, you want Lisa.
I just want to see. Okay.
Should I leave one for Scott?
Yeah. Thank you, Diane.
You're welcome, thank you.
Did you get a blank? Oh.
I have an extra.
Copy, 'cause I didn't- So can we respond to any questions you have?
I just have a question, just for more information, and I don't need an answer tonight if that's something to provide. I had a couple of things. On the percentages that you provided us tonight, can we get the actual numbers?
For programming or dollars?
All of the numbers. In other words, your card holders went up 9%. What
Okay.
was the original number? What is the actual number? Same thing for.
I have those with me if you want them.
That's fine.
That would be
I mean, we're
great.
going to deliberate at a future date, so it's not
Okay.
something that I need. Could we also get, in the annual report, you have a revenue report for revenues you receive, fines, interest, gifts, donations. Can we get an estimated 2011 revenues?
The private revenues, private side revenues, are you talking, or?
No, for instance, you have, in 2010, you had $10,962 in revenues, which was fees collected for library cards.
Lost books.
Fines,
Yeah.
lost books, all of that.
Yeah.
Could we get estimated for 2011? And then the other thing, the RSA 202, there's an annual report that's submitted to the state library.
Yep.
Could we get a copy of that?
It's multiple pages. You want the whole the latest?
Can you
It's
send
not
it
been-
electronically?
No, because I have to go onto a website to fill in the numbers, and the 2010s are not available yet. The state library posts them all electronically on their website, but the numbers are not, I think their last one was 2009.
But the state library has 2010 on the website?
No, I don't think it's been published yet. I'd have to check what the latest one
But we've
is.
submitted it.
Definitely,
So is it possible to get a copy of that?
Of
And maybe
what
if you could
I
just-
submitted in
yes.
paper. It'll have to be in paper. I don't have
I'm wondering, Sue,
an electronic
We
copy.
could scan
if
it.
Sue,
Scan
yeah,
it.
if we could scan it, maybe just one copy.
I
and
can
then Sue
scan it
scan
and
send
send
it
it
to us
to you.
electronically. Great, that'd be good.
There's no comparison to other libraries, it's just our document, our numbers.
Understood.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all right.
Hi,
That's
Scott.
it? Any other questions?
How are you?
Good evening, Scott.
How are you?
You missed the best part.
Sorry.
Yeah, we missed your report, but you don't have any more.
One more.
I know,
But you did become the alternate on the planning board.
that's right.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Every other week.
I do have a question on, you want an estimate for the fines and gifts and all that other fun stuff for 2011. I'm not sure how well we can extrapolate what we have up until this point, because we did have a great increase in non-resident library cards, which might skew any kind of averaging over the past 8 months.
But it would still be revenue for this year.
Are you looking for year-to-date from them?
Yeah, I guess that's all you could provide.
Yeah, it
Oh,
would
you're
be
looking for
hard
the
to
estimate for 2011
extrapolate.
this year.
But yeah, we can provide that.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll give it a best shot.
Any other questions? No? Dave? Scott, do you have any questions? on
No.
that?
Looks good.
It really does.
Okay.
Do you want us to text you with the score? Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
You could. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Good luck, Liz.
thank you. Thanks. Okay. Parks and Rec Director, Rick Wilhelmi. Do you have a commissioner that's coming here with you?
Not sure.
I guess you don't. Unless the chief wants to sit with you to keep you company.
I'm on, it's me.
You're on.
It'd be me.
Actually, that's good now, that you're sitting up here, and if he does come, you can tell him he's late.
You can sit at the small table?
Right.
Uh, Let's see.
Sir?
Thank you. Just to kind of go over, I mean, I think 2011, my first full year, I think I was very grateful for a good budget that we received. We made a lot of headway with our facilities, especially our pools. Had a lot of great feedback from our community members with regards to that, and I thank everybody involved for everything that they've done to allow that to happen. And I think that's kind of where I'm going to eventually segue into is we've made some good headway, and we still have a lot of headway that has to happen within our Parks and Recreation Department. I mean, our facilities are tired. We're making little headway at them, and I think that's a big part of what our commissioners are looking at, is to continue that growth of our rehabbing our facilities and getting them to the point where they're up to decent looking condition. Our budget, the commissioner's budget that you have in your packet, you'll see is about an 11% increase from the 2011 budget. A lot of those, I mean, there's some, it was interesting listening to the trustees, the library trustees speak, and the facets that we can control have gone up, but you also have the benefit lines that have gone up, your propane lines, things that are kind of uncontrollable that have gone up as well. If I can basically talk with regards to, do you have the highlights that I sent you? If I go line seasonal employees are 41,160. That line is looking to increase $3,600 over 2011. And that's our seasonal wages. That's all our lifeguards. That's our park employee, our playground employees. That's our part-time grounds people. If you look what we did in there is we've kind of made some adjustments here and there. With our pool staff, our lifeguard staff, we've actually decreased that amount a little bit. We've always budgeted for a 12-week time frame with our lifeguards. The most we'll ever get is an 11-week time frame out of the lifeguards. Based to situations where you have college-age students that are returning second week, third week of August. Some of our high school students are participating in athletics, so they end up leaving early because of that. Some of the kids are in different districts other than Goffstown, so they leave as well. So we decreased that a little bit. We did increase our playground staff. Last year, we increased by one position. We're looking to increase by another position this year. That gets us closer to our ratios as far as the number of children per counselor. We did utilize CITs this year as well. That comes out of a contract service line, which is a little different. And then the seasonal maintenance line, the grounds crew, that line went up. We have an unbelievable demand preparing fields, mowing fields in the springtime, and then again heavily in this time of year, from September to October. We're all over the place getting all the middle school fields done, the high school fields done, our Select Field Complex done, Barnard Park done. A high demand with all the people using these facilities. So we changed that around a little bit. Bottom line is it's only a $3,600 increase. Employee development, I increased that by $205. That's line 44,300. And that's basically, we are looking at, for myself, I was going to get certified as Parks and Recreation Director. That's the big increase. That's the $200 increase. The other amount of money is basically first aid. We got to get our staff trained in first aid, and a couple other little things here and there. Contract services. That's a small increase, 628, dyslexia there. And that has to do with, this year, what we're looking to do in our youth basketball program is to develop a mentoring program for our high school kids that are interested in pursuing and becoming referees. Other towns do this, and in my world, in my private world of officiating in basketball, it's a wonderful thing. The kids give back to the community. They make $10 a game, something like that, to referee a game. They work with an adult. It's a great resume builder for them. It's great for the program. So looking just to enhance that program a little more. On that note, too, our youth basketball program has increased. I mean, we added a first and second grade program. We had 75 kids in the program. Our high school division had 88 kids in the program. And then our fifth to sixth grade program, we had a full girls program this year. We didn't really have one in years past. So you're seeing growth. You're seeing a lot of energy come out in that area. And I'd like to see us be able to do this with the kids, and I think that would get them to buy in. And it'd actually be wonderful for them for their academics and when they look for college and things like that, too. Another big line that you'll see is the line 54530, maintenance, supply, and equipment. That's a large increase of $8,860. The bulk of that is a utility trailer. The utility trailer, which is the landscaping trailer, the one that looks like Jed Clampett driving around town. That
is a visual, yeah.
It is. It's Jed Clampett. Wait till we get the sideboards on it. It'll look even better. We'll put the rocking chair up there. But that, our town mechanic has fixed it and repaired it and registered it, and it's getting to the point where you can't keep fixing it, and it's tired. So a big bulk of that increase is for that trailer. We also looked at a machine. It's a DR leaf vacuum machine, and it'd be great because it would, at that time of year, if we get down to one person, one man working, It's gonna expedite and speed up that process that individual can do. It can be attached to one of our mowers, it can be dragged along, you can pick up the leaves as you go. It has hoses that come off of the thing, it composts the leaves, and you can put a sucker on it so you can reach into different areas. It would be a very big benefit for the department and where we're gonna grow with that. So I think that's where you have some big increases there. Building supplies, that has a $416 increase. That's mainly, we shifted some monies around. We used to have something called cleaning services. That was eliminated because we do all our own stuff now. It's like polishing the floors, waxing your buffing, waxing your floors, so we do that ourselves. So the $400 is basically the material to do it. That type of thing. In our park operation line, 64,100. That's a $7,700 increase, and that was the same thing that was proposed last year. These are just needed things. I mean, I'll show you the detail, and if you want to tell me where to cut from, then fine, we'll do that. But we're talking about, just simple things as the porta potty over at Glen Lake. Okay, that's $1,800. All your fields, Surratt fields, we got to fertilize them, we got to seed those fields. And we're looking to do that all in-house as far as the fertilizing goes. As far as the fertilizing and aeration goes, we can do that in-house. We can buy the material ourselves. We have access to a spreader and a tractor. Certain things we cannot do, which is slit seeding. That you need a specialized machine for, so we're going to contract out for that. And if you don't do these type of things, then your fields will be destroyed. This past year, we had to replace about 1,000 square feet of sod at the Surratt field. It's just wear and tear, normal wear and tear on these fields that we see, and the only way to fix some of it is going to be put down some sod, so that's going to be at a little expense. We have all these irrigation systems. We have a full irrigation system on Barnard football field. We have a full irrigation system on the Surratt complex. We're responsible for the irrigation on the town common. You got to open these, you got to close these. Sprinkler heads go. If a sprinkler head goes, it's about $130 to have somebody come in. Their time to come there, $70 to fix the product. There's your $130. These things happen, so we have to put the monies in there and be prepared for that. Our pool operation line, 65,100. That line has been supported very well, and we're extremely excited about that. And that the pool is coming right along. There is a small increase there of $2,100. We nailed down an awful lot of stuff from 2011, fixed it right up. We still have some things that we have to look at. Our skimmer lines have some leaks. I just had the Blue Dolphin. They came in over the weekend, and they're giving me the final results. That didn't have it for tonight. But I know we have a leak in our Barnard pool in the skimmer line. Main drain seems fine. So, and then the biggest thing with that pool operation line is a mandated in 2012, you have to have an ADA compatible lift to get people in and out of the water. There's no getting around that unless somebody can prove some magic and make that happen. But I don't think when the federal government says you have to do this, you have to do it. And that's based on 300 linear feet of pool siding. So you have to have one lift per 300 feet of linear feet. I'm saying that incorrectly, but so that would mean we need one lift at Roy, and they're about $5,500.
This is from a wheelchair into the pool.
Yes. What it actually is, David, is the individual would come up in their wheelchair, and then they shift over to the seat, and then it has a manual operation where they could actually do it themselves. If they're not capable of doing that, and I'm sure what'll have to happen is people have to assist them to do that. And then obviously, once they're in the water, they're buoyant and they're okay. One thing that we did last year is we did buy one handicap access set of stairs. So that does help with that process, and we did that last year. So we're ahead of the game there. And the number of comments that we got on those stairs was absolutely, absolutely amazing. People were so excited about the stairs. I mean, the number of times people would say, "Oh my goodness, thank you very much." Anyhow.
So you're saying we need 2 of those lifts?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. As far as the program line, the 66-100 line, that's a $5,000 increase from last year. And that's things that we've never, that were, you know, I came in last year and I had all kinds of increases, and here I'm coming again this year with all kinds of increases. And I kind of apologize for that, but on the other hand, it is what it is. And I would love to just show you all the detail and say, this is what it is to run these programs. Where do you want to take monies out of it? Mm-hmm. And I mean, little things like for the programs, I mean, you know, the returning of the shirt, a basketball player wears his shirt and gives it back at the end of the year, you're getting a shirt. Everybody's getting a shirt, and they're going to keep their shirt. So, I mean, that alone right there is almost probably a $3,000 increase right there if you have over 450 kids playing basketball. So that's a huge increase right there. And then all our Goffstown Gallup monies, our expenses, that's coming directly out of that line too. So, which is different than in the years past. So, but I'd be glad to answer any questions. And if I don't have an answer, I'd be glad to get a better answer for you at a later date.
Scott?
If I could, as it came up in the commissioners' meeting, is that a lot of things that are here, as you recall, a few years ago, there was a lot of bartering going on. We knew that there were donations of seed. There was something here and there. I think what you're seeing here is all of those things are now in the budget, and I think it's just more reflective in what the true costs are. Than say 3 to 4 years ago, where there was a lot of, you know, can you do this for me, and can you make a donation here? But it didn't appear in the budget, but then it came out from somewhere else. And not to say that people don't make donations, but like the fees, for an example, there wasn't really a fee charged for different groups, but they had to contribute $500 towards fertilizer or seed or things of that nature. Where now it's a little bit, these are the costs. We're charging a fee to use the facility. And it's a little bit.
Do those show up on our revenue sheets?
That was my question.
Oh, I don't know who you wanted to direct it to.
Whoever, I guess.
So in other words, in the past, if someone wanted to use the field, in lieu of a fee, they donated services, blowing out the irrigation, slit seeding, all of those things. Now, they're charged a fee. And consequently, as you just explained, Selectman Gross, we have to pay for those services. Mm-hmm. So do those revenues that they're now charged to use the facilities show up on the revenue side?
Yes. Yes. That's where the revolving fund comes in place.
That's not the question.
Well,
They do not show up in the general fund revenue.
Right, they're
Zero.
revolving fund revenue. And if I could, can I continue, if I may?
Well, if it answers Nick's question.
I think it'll help explain Nick's question.
Okay.
If I could go. The commissioners had a very long discussion, the last 2 meetings, about the revolving fund. And if you recall, when we talked to the community about it, it was for capital needs, and the commissioners have been talking about, you know, is that something that that the commissioners have to revisit in terms of should some of these monies from the revolving fund go towards programs, things like staffing. So if you're having a summer camp and you have to pay for additional counselors, should that money be used for that? T-shirts, things of that nature. What proportion of money should it be, could it potentially be used to offset more operating expenses, and then using another percentage of it for more capital-related items. So, am I speaking out of context? I think that's kind of what, there's a lot of discussion.
That's what there's a lot of discussion about, yes, at the commissioner level.
And I think you can get there even under the current guidelines. For instance, you've just explained we have $11,000 for handicap lifts that we are required by ADA to get. That's a capital improvement. That $11,000 no longer coming out of the budget frees up $11,000 to be utilized for some of the park operations. So we're still staying within the guidelines of that capital reserve fund, but it's not, we're taking on all the expenses, but we can't use the revenue.
But let me just add to that, though. The only, I understand what you're saying, but the difficulty with that is that my understanding is that the Board of Selectmen does not control what comes out of that fund.
Oh, I understand,
It's the
absolutely.
commissioners, so
That's correct.
this is, just keep that in mind. Scott?
I got the impression from attending the last two commission meetings that the commission itself does want to have a dialogue with the Board of Selectmen at some point as to the revolving fund and the uses of the revolving fund. When we voted on it and when we talked to the community about it, we did talk about it primarily as a mechanism for capital expenditures into the future, expansion, things of that nature. However, the RSA or the language in which we are bound by does not stipulate capital. So that the way that it was written on the warrant article and the way that the legislation is written, a revolving fund is used, cannot just simply be used for capital. The commissioners could use it for any expenses.
Day-to-day operations.
Day-to-day operations. They
Any
could-
Parks and Rec
Any
costs.
Parks and Rec.
Any parks and
fees, right.
recreation. program.
Costs, right.
So they
programs.
can buy your trailer out of that fund.
They could technically do a lot of these things, using that fund. But then it kind of goes back to, again, I'm trying to recap some of the conversations that we had. The intent of the fund was really to try to address some of the long-term capital needs of the department. When we talked about how oftentimes a department like Parks and Recreation or the library is usually a third-tier priority. So whether it be, police, fire, DPW, and then it's third tier would be Parks and Rec and Library. Them having the ability to have a mechanism to gain capital reserves for these types of things. So, and then how do you balance that with some operational things? And is there some, I wouldn't say gray area, Nick, but arguably I could say that trailer is a maintenance item. I could say that the lifts are a capital item, but are they a capital item, or are they really a maintenance? I mean, there's a lot of
That's
gray area
what
there,
the
and I think the
commissioners-
commissioners are totally open to having a dialogue with the Board of Selectmen to say, okay, what's a good approach to this thing? I got the sense from the commissioners that they're willing to have that discussion, that they're willing to talk about some alternatives to try to make everything work out in terms of budget and capital needs.
And I remember the conversation we had at the deliberative session, and a portion of that argument was not only as a mechanism to generate additional funds, but it was also a housekeeping. We were looking to solidify and put into a formal process money, services coming in. So I don't think the intent was to take, I'll just use a number, $5,000 worth of bartered services, put that revenue into a revolving fund, and now the town taxpayers picking up that expense. It was meant to
Be for
formally.
transparency.
Exactly, for transparency. So I think at a minimum, we have to have a conversation to cover all of these field services, if you will, those expenses that normally were covered and didn't come out of the budget. It's still a revenue stream that could ultimately build up, but I think at a minimum, we need to meet those expenses that were being met before we put this into place.
Rick, would it be a fair characterization of the commission that they welcome that and actually have had these discussions? They didn't want to trample on the toes of the warrant article a couple of years ago where it said capital, and they didn't want to upset the apple cart, shall we say, but there has been very active discussions about using these revolving fees for the things that you just mentioned.
You should come to one of the meetings, because it's been very insightful. And this is all ground floor work, and we're all sifting through this. And that whole concept of what you're talking about, Nick, was brought up.
Yep.
And it was talked about. And say, there are other towns, and this is how they do it. Their monies come in, their monies go out. Transparency is what you want to see. It's very transparent. There is a way to make it work where it's still gonna, you have a little extra money in there, that stays in there. That's the capital way. That's a slower way of getting your capital dream. There's many ways to make this work. I think we're kind of working along the dialogue of this original 2009, how it was kind of talked about and how it was really to the community. So we'd love to have some dialogue.
With all due respect, though, I think we're getting a budget presentation now, which reflects an 11% increase.
Yes.
I think the commission needs to come to us, either maybe take this back and revise it, but instead of saying we're having those conversations, where is that leading for 2012? I don't see those numbers here.
Those discussions were had. I think essentially what the commission decided was to bring it to the Board of Selectmen out of respect to the whole warrant article from 2 and 3 years ago. If this board concurs with your opinion and sends that back to the Parks and Rec Commission, they will undoubtedly do that exercise. They didn't want to, again, I guess, trample on the spirit of what was perceived to have been only for capital uses and things of that nature. So I think in fairness to them, they've had 2 now monthly meetings where they've talked hot and heavy about this subject.
Well, if I can just, for clarification here, so that we're kind of all on the same page, at least maybe so that I'm on the same page. We had a warrant article that said that the capital reserve fund was going to be for capital, future capital expenses.
That's not correct.
What did it say?
You don't have, I can get you a copy of the warrant article, but the warrant article is generic in nature.
It's for any
It is for
purpose.
any purpose.
Any Parks and Rec purpose.
That's what the warrant
The
article that we
article.
put on?
Yes.
Yes.
Because it was kept as broad as a statute.
Very
Okay,
broad as
but
a
that's-
statute.
But I thought we were having a discussion here that it said it was for,
No,
The
I think there was a.
explanation
yeah,
was-
The explanation,
The
in
intent.
in my few months here, the explanation to me was it was explained to the community that it is for capital reserve principles.
Yeah.
That's how I'm going
that's
with
the
it.
conflict of what I'm hearing here. I'm hearing that from him, and now I'm hearing that it was for general things, so.
The warrant article is different from the
Right.
explanation.
Okay. The warrant article itself, Phil, was generic because it followed the statute. The explanation and I guess the marketing or the sales or how do you get people to buy into it was people were scared about creating the fund. They were nervous about it because it was something new. And I think by exploring or by going the direction of using it for capital purposes, I think it kind of allayed some of those concerns. But the reality of it is that the wording of the article itself is fairly generic. And I think that's why the commission, when they talked about it, they're like, okay, we know that we could technically do this, but it would fly in the spirit of the way that the town kind of sold it to the people at the deliberative session and perhaps marketed the revolving fund in the first place. And again, I'll remind everybody why it went that way. There was a concern that if we had a system like this, that these fees would all be just simply used to cut budget, to cut the operating budget, and that was that. And there was a recognition there that, no, that's not the intent. It was exactly what Nick stated. It was that we want to try to instill some transparency. If we're getting $5,000 in kind of barter or donated service, we need to kind of reflect that, and it's cleaner looking.
Okay. Let me ask a question. Is there money in the revolving fund?
Yes.
What type of accounting is there on the income of that? In other words, how are those monies that are collected placed in there? Are they just, how are the lines broken out, or what's?
Broken down to either a program line, a program income line, or a facility rental line.
I guess, though, to get to what Nick's question is, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, Nick, but from my thought there, were these revenues that we used to have?
Never.
No.
Yeah.
No, because of many, in many.
No, these, wait a minute, I'm not, revenues that we used to have, that were these offsets that Nick talked about before. So if somebody used a field, and instead of paying for a field, they blew out the lines at the end of the year for the irrigation. Now we're paying to have that done,
Yes.
okay? So the person who.
Those small things, like fertilizer stuff. Go ahead. I'm good.
Okay, now we're picking up all of those expenses. Where are the revenues that we've had for that? How are those revenues?
Take it in as revenue, it was a direct payment to
It
the
was,
vendor.
exactly. We never physically took in the revenue.
It was a barter system.
We said, okay, it's gonna cost us $500 for seed, okay.
You do it.
You, XYZ organization.
Take care of it.
Take care of it, thank you.
Okay, so what you're saying now, instead of them doing that, they're paying a fee.
Yes.
And those fees are going in here and they're listed as fees.
In the,
So from what I'm hearing, okay, and maybe I'm wrong, and I'm not hearing this, but from what I'm hearing is that those fees are what used to offset the fees that are in the budget that the taxpayers are being.
there was never the fees,
it wasn't
the
a fee.
ironic thing, Phil.
No, not that it was a fee, but it was still a revenue that offset the cost to the taxpayer.
Not a revenue, it was a in-kind service.
A barter is a revenue.
Right.
An unrecorded revenue.
Unrecorded revenue.
Exactly.
Okay.
That offset
It's an
the-
offset, as if,
Yes.
how do you offset an expense?
Yeah.
With a revenue.
Yeah.
How you get to that revenue could be
And
a
that's-
barter, it could be cash, it could be something else, but you're still getting to that revenue.
And that's why when you see these lines
159.
increasing, it's the
What
true
year?
cost of what it is.
8.
Right.
That's what it was.
Right.
Article 15.
So what I'm hearing then is that these program fees should be shown as a revenue to offset these increases that are in the budget. Because that's where they were, but you couldn't see them because there was no transparency before.
So does that mean it goes into a general fund?
Hold on.
I mean, can I?
Where are you going?
Can I jump in for a second? Part of that process also, and if I misspeak, please step in. When, in the past, if someone was using the field, they might say, hey, can you seed this portion, or can you do this other little task over here in the fields? I don't think, and having been with these fields historically in the past, I don't think they were maintained to what we were talking about as we're doing today. So it wasn't like this was the full maintenance for these fields. It was small, little in-kind pieces. So in other words, having one who played on those fields, trust me, no one ever came and did saws, and there were big dead spots in them.
The Parks and Rec fields.
Parks and
Yes.
Rec field. I'm just saying. Now, with that being said, is that what you're trying to do is take that and say, well, that offsets all these. I don't think there's a direct, in other words, one would have to, first of all, we don't have historic numbers on what those in-kind donations were. And regarding how much, in other words, can you say that offsets the full cost of what's going on within the budget? And part of this process was going through Parks and Rec, and I think Rick's done a great job, and Parks and Rec's people have, that you can see the improvement in the parks, but I don't think that automatically you want to look at those fees and say, oh, that was we were getting it in kind, and that was taking care of everything before, because the parks and the fields weren't in that great a shape. We all know that. And the second piece I wanted to just add with that what we're talking about right now was the biggest fear going forward, that if all of a sudden this little pocket of money, and that's what we're talking about, a little pocket of money, people would automatically say, oh, let's take that and go forward. And I realized
Whose fear was this?
was mine, I'll tell you that. It was anyone who was in Parks and Rec, anyone who, we talked
Certainly,
about
I would
this. We
subscribe
talked
to that.
about this.
I was concerned about it.
This was out on the table, we talked about it, saying, as we go forward and we do this revolving account, in other words, because we were going from a Parks and Rec system where no one paid, so now there was going to be fees. And part of that was, what are we gonna do with these fees? It was going to be, we talked about capital improvement, and that was how this was given to the public. So I was sitting here watching this. I do sit here and I understand where Nick's going, and I'll get off the stump in a second here. I understand where Nick's going. I understand what you're talking about a little bit. But I would say that we deal with this with, we just started the budget process, and I would say that we deal with this with extreme caution, because part of it was these parks and these pools, everything went into disrepair over the years. And we're just starting to get going, to improve upon them, to improve upon the quality of our programs. And I'd hate to see us looking at it saying, trying to figure out, well, some guy had done some seed, or some guy had done that, and we started attacking this revolving account.
Nick? Paul, I don't want to seem like we're jumping on you,
No,
because we do appreciate the great job you've done.
I think
in
this
Parks
is
and Rec, but
great
it's a
conversation, I
philosophical
really do.
question here, and I would agree, Selectmen, if we looked at the default budget of $407,000 and said, you know what, we're in tight budget times, we're gonna reduce that default budget to $390,000 and take the difference out of the revolving fund. That was one thing we did not want to happen. However, when we see a budget request that says we want to expand a program, we want to increase hours, the parks program is getting bigger. That's exactly why that capital reserve fund was put into place. So I don't think anyone can accuse us of cutting the budget and using that funding. That funding is being used exactly what it was intended for.
If I misspeak, please stop me. I got the impression that the commission is looking for that sweet spot, the balance of using some of this revolving fund money for some of the things that are on here, and then letting the other monies accumulate. And I don't think it'll be a big accumulation, but when you want to do something bigger, i.e. develop a new park, or there's a new something, you have something. If you want to get a grant,
build a new playground.
Right,
You
if
need the
Right.
seed money to the
Well,
matching grant money
I think
stuff.
case in point is Rails to Trails. I mean, we were fortunate, we had impact fee money. However, there are federal grants out there, state grants, private grants, where you need a matching. And, this revolving fund money gives you a little bit of an opportunity to do that. So the commissioners, I think, they seem pretty together on this one, that they're looking for what would be a reasonable amount or percentage to use towards some of these things. And I think as a Board of Selectmen, we have to actually take a position to say, okay, do we think that handicap lifts in a pool are something that should be coming out of this fund? Or do we think that because we're expanding a summer program, that makes appropriate sense because we're charging fees, that money should go there? I think those are discussions that we have to have with the
Or do you
commissioners.
say all programmatic things come right out of that revolving fund, and anything that is a facility comes out of your operational fund?
Right.
Well-
And that's way most, that's what
Yeah, but
most
let me just
departments
say
do
one
it, by the
thing.
way.
Here, I guess, though, that I'm looking at the commissioners, for the commissioners to put in their budget what reflects the increase in the budgets to the programs, as Nick stated. You have an expansion in the program. You're charging fees for programs. That should be offset, that expansion should be offset, if that's what they're for. If we were looking for transparency, and it comes down to one thing, now, we can sit here and we can argue what the quality of the field of a particular field was. We can argue that until the cows come home, but that's not the point. The point is that that cost was not transferred, whether it was something in kind, it was a barter, or whatever it was. That fee, that expense, was not borne by the taxpayer. Now, we don't have that barter system anymore. Those increases are being borne by the taxpayer. There should be an offset shown as a revenue someplace. And I'm looking to the commissioners for their guidance and what they are putting in the budget as the offset. That's my 20%.
The thing that I have to say is, I'll just use the youth basketball program, for instance.
Okay.
Okay? You never bought shirts for these kids. They returned them. Okay, so that's an increase. So whether you have 10 more kids next year or you have 50 kids more, it's still a huge increase. So to say that's an increase in programming, yeah, it is. But you're still increasing the expenses to that program because it was never there
Well,
before.
Rick,
So what do you do?
Rick, all things aside, I don't think that's a fair thing to say, because what you're doing here is you're saying to the Board of Selectmen that we gave kids, the commissioners gave or the Parks and Rec Department gave kids shirts, and we asked for those shirts back so we can give them to some other kids. Aren't you guys heartless that you can't let the kids keep the shirts? I don't think that's where we want to go. So I don't think that's a good comparison.
I apologize, but I'm just trying to give somewhat of an example, Phil,
It's just,
okay?
I think what happened there is that, a lot of us have had kids involved in Tri-Town, Little League, softball, et cetera. And Phil, I have to say that
It's disgusting.
I'm gonna leave that out of it. It's just something that's not normal, not traditional, where you would return a cotton, T-shirt. If you had a $100 uniform, you typically return it. It's more of like quarterman type system, but with an $8 T-shirt, you typically, whether it's soccer, you take it. But
Yeah,
neither
but
here
who
nor there.
did that? The Parks and Rec Commissioners.
I understand. I think, but I
We
think
don't want to go
different-
down
it's a
that
different
road.
era.
I honestly, to be totally honest, I'd like to talk about the present day and go
Yeah,
forward.
I would too, and I'd like to get off of
I
that,
don't want to
so-
talk about the past.
So,
I really
but
don't.
I also have to, if I could add a couple of different things. We, as a board, have to also acknowledge the fact that we are having Parks and Rec do a little bit more at Glen Lake. We're asking them to take care of the common, do rails to
I didn't even
trails.
bring that up.
I know that, but I'm just saying,
you.
those are some of the things
Oh,
that we're asking
absolutely.
them to do. So to expect,
And that's not even.
I
in
guess
this
where
budget.
I'm going with this is, yeah, I think that in order to make improvements in our parks, having level budgets in Parks and Rec is unrealistic. Would it be 11%? Maybe not. But I think that it's gonna come, it's realistic to me to think that we're gonna have to, we're in a little bit of a catch-up type mode. And I think the board has been very supportive. I mean, the pools were a huge example of that one. But, so I'm with Nick on this one. I think we need to go back and ask the commissioners to take a look at some of these things where they think are appropriate for maybe use of revolving fund money, whether it be on increased programming, maintenance that is tied in conjunction with use of the fields. And then the rest of it should go towards capital, long-term capital projects. That's what I think we should do.
Thank you. That was going to be my suggestion, is that this board provide some guidance back to the Parks and Rec Commission, ask them to resubmit this budget proposal, taking into account their use of that revolving fund, so that we can see the exact picture of what it is that we would be appropriating.
Steve, and then Dave.
It's the number kind of flashes out 11%. I think also you gotta take it take it as 11% of what? Just like when you were asking for information from the library and someone says we have a 24% increase, you wanna know, well, what's that number from? And when we brought Rick on as Parks and Rec, we knew the conditions, we understood there was going to be some costs, and I think they've been very creative with the revolving account. I think they've been very creative how they do staffing, and I think, not just Rick, but the Parks and Rec Commission. So does it surprise me to see the increase? Absolutely not, because we're trying to come out of the hole. And once again, when someone says 11%, I have to look at that 11% and say, hey, we're talking around 45,000. It's not chump change, I understand that. But when we start getting into roads and all these other big projects, we look at 45,000 and blink sometimes. And I would like to say that the impact that we see from Parks and Rec, especially this last year, between what's happened with the pools, what's happened with events, and what's going forward with the Rails to Trail, I think it's just brought a big sense of community that's going on, and I hate to see, as we go forward, I'd hate to see us just think that, oh, it's 11%. I think we ought to put the dollar figure to it and look at what that means, because the dollar figure is a lot different than the percentage.
Dave?
Administrative question for Sue on maintaining the bookkeeping. If, I'll just use a number here. If the fees amounted to $20,000 a year, could the commissioners make a decision that 10,000 of that should appear on the revenue line? And that would take care of some of these concerns.
Could that happen?
Yes.
I've heard two different things. I'm glad you brought that up. I've heard Selectman Devanza looking for revenue, general fund revenue offset to these new expenses. And I heard Selectman Cavazano say, let's send it back to Parks and Rec commissioners to see what they can decrease out of the general fund appropriations and pay it out of the revolving fund.
Right.
Two different methodologies.
but I-
Achieves the same purpose.
And I think that's it. And
But two
it's
different
not,
methodologies, and now you're asking that question, which is the easiest way administratively?
Yes, so if the money, should this money show up as on the revenue line, which right now reads 0,
Right.
should it?
You could do a transfer in from a revolving
EMS.
fund.
You can do a transfer
You
in.
can do a transfer in if you chose to keep it in the,
And that would
general
still
fund
allow the commissioners to bankroll some of that money for some future grant that they anticipate. If they need to accumulate more money.
yes, the non-lapsing fund would
Mm-hmm.
continue.
This is, I think, this is not going to be an easy task for the Parks and Rec Commission, nor would it be for any one of us individually to contemplate it. I obviously have a little bit more because I'm a liaison. But when I think about these things, and I think about the monies that have to get spent, I say to myself, okay, if I went back 5 years, what are the types of things that would probably be in this budget? And really, what are some of the things that are more expansion or and some other things? So when as an example, I look at a trailer, to be honest with you, as we would have a trailer regardless. We got to mow the lawns, and that's something that's got to come out of our budget, et cetera, or a lawnmower, things of that nature. When we start talking about doing something different with a summer camp and, then I start thinking, you know what, that's really more of a revolving fund thing because we're charging for the summer camp and yet so I kind of see that correlation. That's just two examples from me. And we may all have different opinions on it, but the commission, it would help, I think, the commission if we kind of at least expressed what I just said. If there's concurrence with that, it'll give them more direction. If we're not there, then I think you just can't throw it back in their laps and say, oh, here's your list, come back and do it differently. I think we need to start saying, okay, if they go in with the mindset of, in the past, if that's something that traditionally would be in the Parks and Rec budget, i.e. a trailer, then that's where it should remain. If it's something that is more of an expansion of an existing program, or like I just mentioned with the summer playground or summer camp, then that's really something that you should think about, trying to have some of those costs come out of the revolving fund. I think that will give clearer direction to the commission.
but just to expand on what you're saying, because I was thinking about the trailer. In the discussion with the trailer, we were talking about, or might have been Rick, you might have mentioned this, I don't remember where it was, but since we're doing more with like the sod and we're doing more, there's more work on the trailer, and the trailer, there's more work, usage of it. And Scott brought up a very legitimate point, that normally that trailer is just a budget item because it's a piece of equipment, okay? But if the commissioners look at that and say, well, there's an expansion of use on that now, and I'm just saying this is for example, in this discussion about this trailer. If they find that there was more use on that piece of equipment now because we're doing more that we didn't do because it was bartered away before, they may, and I'm not saying that I'm expecting it, I'm just saying it might be something they may look at, they may come up with a formula, they're gonna say, you know what? 95% of that trailer is gonna be in the budget, but we're gonna offset 5% of it from from that fund. Come up with a formula, I think they need to do that, because I don't think that we can here, what the use is, I can't get a full grasp of how much was bartered and how much.
Poor example.
How much that's now increasing the equipment that we have in the Parks and Rec.
The reason we're replacing the trailer is because the trailer is defunct.
We could be,
That has nothing to do
we
with
could be
increasing
decreasing our
expansion.
programs and we still have to replace the trails.
No, that's not what I said. I said that it's up to them to take a look at how the stuff is used, and if they feel that there's a formula, that should be up to them, Scott.
My personal sentiment is that it should go back to Parks and Rec to try to look for some of these things where revolving funds could be used for some of these items on this list. I would also like to highlight what Selectman Fournier said. It is a $40,000 increase, and obviously we're trying to temper tax increases, all those other things. That being said, $40,000, I mean, I wanna, in terms of our time frame and that's 40,000. We're gonna be dealing with 400,000 for financial software, garbage trucks, roads that are gonna be caught into the millions. I don't wanna see us bogged down spending dozens of hours on this $40,000 when literally we have 10 times that amount on one piece of apparatus. So I think I've got pretty good feel of what the board is. Rick, I don't know, do you have a good sense of where they're going?
Just a request, if we could we get backup information, in other words, exactly what type of trailer, what the cost is, what the DR machine cost is. You don't have to give that to me now. Under park operations, could you break down, you kind of give us a paragraph that
I
these are
have all
different.
the detail that I wanted to
Perfect.
make copies for you all, but whatever.
We don't need it tonight, we just got these over the weekend
No
anyway,
problem.
but if.
Because
we
I
could
think
get
if
some
you look
support.
at the detail and the detail of this, you will be amazed. And you'll look at it and say, that's doing business. You will. I'll be glad to show you all that.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
Any questions of us, Rick?
No, it's been a great time. But no, seriously, I think this is good conversation.
You're doing a wonderful job.
This is
Yeah,
very
you are.
good conversation, and I really would love the idea of having, I'm the type of good, everybody get in the sandbox and talk. That's what you have to do. And make it work.
And he didn't even talk about the great shape that they're not in. I'm being facetious of our tennis courts and some of our, I think it would behoove us to do some road trips to start to see what the parks look like, what some of our police station looks like, what some of our firehouses look like. I mean, I know we should all be doing these things, but if we're not, then we definitely should be visiting some of our infrastructure because it is in need of some work.
I made a list for our commissioners of all the Surratt Field, Roy Park, Barnard Park, Town Common, Skate Park, Parks and Recreation Building, all these properties. And I made a list from my time of the things that we've done and then future needs. And I'm going to email all you guys that document so that you can see that. And there's a lot on the list. And I know times are very, very difficult. Trust me, I live in town. I know how it is, and I respect that. But I would not be doing my job if I did not bring this forward and show you the condition that we're in and what we need to do. But we got to work together.
Just want to, and I think Selectman Gross and Rick are making a good point. And when you look, it's funny because when I was on budget committee, you would look at the budget and you would look at school sports and their fields, et cetera. And then you go and look at what we have, Parks and Rec. But the interesting thing was Parks and Rec with a larger number of people around the clock and larger age group. What you're saying, from toddlers to
From Pampers to Grampers.
Pampers to Grampers. And if you look at that budget and you say we're doing all that with that budget, I think it's actually pretty amazing when you start looking at how all our other fields look. But when we get to people who aren't on school sports, and like I say, once again, there's more people. What we give them, and we're not looking for anything.
We spend
glamorous.
more money on school transportation of athletic events than we probably do
On parks and our
on
own
a lot of
parks
the
and rec.
programs. so.
I mean, so when we say 11%, I understand that, but I go back to the 45,000. I'm saying it's nothing, but in the course of the whole piece and where we're making headway going out, I'd hate to see us do things with that revolving account because that's that piece for down the road. And I just think we should take caution with that.
Yes. Okay,
I'm gonna change the subject a little, so go
yes,
ahead.
I'm going to
I
change the
want to
subject
change the
too.
subject too.
You're
I
after
hope you found that the burden of maintaining cleanliness of Glen Lake waterfront better this year.
Oh, it's phenomenal. Big difference.
Yes.
Big difference. Real big. I mean, it's, You know, and that's great efforts. I mean, police, everybody, that's us, the community coming together and making a stand, and it's been, you still have trash, but it's much better.
Much better. And my second point, I realize there's nothing specific in this proposed budget for your obligations for the rail trail maintenance activities going into the future. And I support that decision. The trail as it is today, and your department's not doing anything unusual to help in that area this year, it will be basically in the same condition all of next year, because the major projects that we anticipate won't get done until late in the construction season next year. So we're fine with the volunteer help this year, so we'll be fine with the volunteer help next year.
2012.
Yes.
Nick, and then Scott.
Well, I was just gonna go back up to the $50,000, 50,000 foot view, and it has nothing to do directly with Parks and Rec, but I think we started off the conversation when we first started our meeting with looking at a projected shortfall in revenue, potentially $150,000. I understand it's early, that may change, but that's over and above the projected surplus that we count on every year, that $500,000 that we put to setting the tax rate. When you take special articles out, when you take EMS and sewer out, we're currently looking at a 30% tax increase, or 30% budget increase. Economic
With those in?
No. When we take out special articles, it's a 30.
No.
3.75%
No.
if you take out special articles and CIP.
A 30% increase.
No.
I have total operating
Yeah,
budget.
but you have to factor in revenues, Nick, too. So if you put in like a fire station at 1 million and change, then you have an
No,
offset.
that's down here, that's not included. That's-
30% increase includes the special articles and CIP. 30% increase in the budget. Is that what you're?
I'm looking at second page, line 10, general fund.
It's largely CIP.
2,000, well, CIP is operating budget.
I know, I'm
We
not,
would call it
I'm not
CIP.
disagreeing with you, but we took a lot of things out of CIP.
I'm not
i.e.
including those. I'm
Right.
saying we're going from projected, from 16,627 to a proposed 21,670, not including the 1.6 fire station renovation bond or the $15,000 Main Street program. Those are separate articles. And the point,
30% increase in the budget,
in the budget.
yes,
30% increase in the budget,
including CIP.
Right.
including CIP.
Right.
But CIP includes, again, financial software. That's the backbone of the town. How often, how far are we gonna, or how long can we defer that? That CIP includes police cruisers for the police department, vital service. That CIP includes public works vehicles. It includes things that we have been deferring and deferring. So we need to have the conversation. We're looking at reduced revenues, and I don't see that trend changing.
Right.
We're looking at increased costs because we've been deferring things that we have to purchase. So unfortunately, $40,000 increase, that's $40,000. And
It is 40.
I mean, every one of those $40,000 is going to add up. And at some point, we have to have a philosophical discussion as to what our priorities are and where we're going before we sit down and start talking pencils and staplers and, 5 hours here. And because 30% is a huge number.
I think it's also reflective, though, Nick, is if you take a look back at 2009. In 2009, this is on page 2 of our summary. In terms of our budget for 2009, we had budgeted, again, a lot of that was mass road sewer, but we had very big capital expenditures in our CIP. Then we went with the whole philosophy with the budget committee of, we're going to take these things out of CIP, our budget, make them as special articles. A lot of those big ticket items failed.
I understand.
Right.
I'm not saying
So
how
what's
we got
happening is
here.
because we deferred, right, now we're saying, okay, in order to get back on track, we would need a 30% increase in our budget to get there, or a combination of budget special articles. Now, I'm not entirely convinced as I look through all this stuff. When I looked at some of the CIP items, I can tell you right now, there are 2 or 3 on there that, I mean, it'd be nice to have, love to do it, but not now. And that being said, yeah, I think we have to take a look at the 50,000 aerial view here of what's going on, because it puts it into perspective. $40,000 is nothing compared to, the 3 or 4 million that we're looking at.
What's that number? I mean, are we comfortable with a 10% increase? Are we comfortable with a 15% increase? Are we comfortable with a 5% increase? I mean, at some point, somebody has to put pen to paper and figure out what those dollar increases are going to equate to, and then if this is the size, then we need to work within that size. But I think sometimes we back ourselves into the corner by, we go through this whole process and we say, okay, everything's justified.
I'll jump on the proverbial sword here. I thought about it over the last week, and I thought about it over the weekend, and I do think that if we're going to address some of our capital project deferments or our vehicle deferments, which are having an impact now, we are going to have to bite the bullet. And if with all due respect to folks in the budget committee, if you said to me, oh, we're going to have a level funded budget from last year, there is no way that I could support that, because there's no way we can do that. I am not hearing anything from the community that says that they want to have fewer firefighters, police officers, or they don't want the roads done. I don't hear that. So there are some that may feel that way, but the vast majority of folks that I talk to don't. That being said, we have to say what increase is palatable for folks on their tax bill. Is it $100 a house? Is it $200 on the average house? Is it $300? I don't know what it is. And then from there, what money is generated? And so let's just say that it's $1 million. Well, if we've got $3 million in needs, Nick, and we've got $1 million that we're willing to say this is what we have to do, well, then $2 million of things can't get done, or we've got to make cuts in other areas to make up for that. I'm fine having that discussion. I think that's probably a discussion where we just have to, that's long overdue, and just get it done.
And I don't think there's any, I don't think there's any disagreement here, but I just think the point that Nick is trying to make is that $40,000 is $40,000 regardless of which department it's coming from. It's still $40,000.
And it doesn't make a department
I
less
think,
important
yeah,
than.
yeah,
than
I
another.
enjoy this conversation, Susan, it's helping us in the future, but we need to stop at the 50,000 foot level and get down to the playing field here. I don't think we have any further questions
No,
for
thank you.
Rick, and we need to allow him to leave.
Yeah. He can stay, though.
Yeah.
Here's your tickets.
Oh, right.
That's $16,500.
What's this for?
A piece, right?
Senior
This
senior
is-
dinner.
Well,
That's
there's only 2 people
16,000.
here who can go to it.
I did go last year.
Well, you don't need a ticket because you're that old? I need a ticket. I get ID'd all the time, It was a Sam's Club and they handed out beer samples. I had to sign a thing.
All I know is that I was at the police department open house on Saturday, and there was free food, and I didn't see you, and I was shocked. I mean, Phil, free food, police department, I was astonished.
I left that much more for you.
Good.
I did, I had a couple of
I
burgers.
figured that.
He was at the senior citizen.
He was at another.
He was at citizen dinner.
Okay.
I had one more, and I'm sorry that, he's still here.
Just making up for the
No, it's
report
not.
that you
It's
didn't get?
actually, I think it's one of these times that somebody's got to make a darn decision. Lead Dog Builders, Ken Richard, offered to build a gazebo, and I know he's itching to do it in the fall because, and there was all this discussion about it being at Barnard Park and it being at the Common and it being an octagon versus then a rectangle. It's like we have a gentleman who wants to do a project and we are bouncing this hot potato around like crazy. And if that means that this board, if we have oversight or a recommendation, then let's do that. Parks and Recreation talked about putting this gazebo at Barnard Park.
What's up with the gazebo?
That's my point. There was some discussion about it being more of a beautification for the town.
Discussion where?
What? I've heard it about,
I'm
We
sorry,
haven't had
I
that
thought-
discussion.
The board has
Actually,
another discussion.
We did
Right.
have this discussion.
Yeah, a long time ago. I
No.
thought it was done. It was settled.
Done and settled at Barnard, correct?
It's at Barnard.
Yeah, that's what I
the last
understood.
place that-
That's what I
Did you know
understood.
that?
I thought it was gonna go over to the Commons.
That's what I had heard too. So, okay, good. I'm glad that we know. Okay, so it's at Barnard Park.
I'm good
Because
with
they're
either.
not-
I'm good with either, but for some reason I'd heard last I
I would
remember.
imagine
it
you get
was
more use
Barnard.
at the Common. That's my own, for the functions we have there, but wherever it needs to go, it's.
But it couldn't be the same
I-
one that he proposed
Correct,
because it
because
wouldn't
it
be a
wouldn't
good
fit.
fit. Yeah. And it will be ADA accessible, right? Wherever it goes?
Yes.
Thank
All
you.
right.
What's the question to the board?
Done. It's done now. There was some I thought that it was supposedly reopened, this debate,
By
and it
who?
was, I don't know,
No,
we talked
we're-
about it.
We were talking offline,
Okay,
but no, it didn't come to the board.
okay, good. We look a little flummoxed for.
I don't know. We were doing better off before you came.
What's the answer to that?
Barnard Park,
Parks and Rec building.
ADA accessible.
Anywhere you want in a Parks and Rec facility.
Thank you. We'll call it tomorrow.
Thank you. Okay. Next item. Ordinance. Anything further on budget presentations while we're on that subject before we move on? None?
Got it.
We're all set then? Okay. Let's go back to, before we forget, we have one thing that we,
Minutes?
minutes. Though the 8:29 minutes, we approved them as is.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna ask you out of courtesy if you had any corrections to those
One
minutes.
second, because I did write something down. 8:29.
Yeah, the public minutes.
We approved the 829, we did not take action on the September 6th.
So if you,
Okay, on the 8:29, can I make a comment?
did you have any
Yeah, I
correct?
did.
Have it?
Well, it was on page 6, second paragraph. And if I said it, I said it, but it says here, Selectman Gross said that when we talk about CIP, sometimes projects get deferred, and that's in the impact fees. He had concern about that impact fees may stifle development. I'm a believer in impact fees, but I'm concerned about the aggregate fees. I did say that. He was concerned that the fees could affect his ability to sell his house. I don't remember saying that, because I don't think that's the case. I had concerns
I was
over someone
confused by
trying,
that.
I had concerns over a developer or anybody trying to sell a house if you have an exorbitant amount of
I don't think
impact
it was
fees.
your house.
I don't think
it was
I-
a developer to sell
Yeah,
a
I,
home.
I
So
thought,
I had
I think you meant, when you said that, though, selling a home in general,
You got it.
not your individual
That is correct.
home.
That's why I put fees could affect the ability to sell a house.
One's ability.
Right, exactly.
So you're talking the abstract, not
Yes.
particularly related to your personal experience?
Yes, and that was it. That's all.
Okay.
Not what he was hoping to do,
Right,
but what someone may be affected.
right.
That was his.
Motion to reconsider our previous vote on accepting the August 29th minutes.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Okay, is there discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's 4-0-1?
Well, I can vote to reconsider, right?
Well, then vote.
Oh, yeah, fine, make it fine. I didn't know, I never had that come up.
Well, I mean, you're sitting there like you'd lost, so I figued you were
Motion
abstaining.
to accept the
So it's
August
five-
29th public
5-0.
minutes with corrections.
Okay,
Second.
is there a second? All in favor?
Aye. I'm off my
Aye.
game.
It's 5-0-0.
Are those the only corrections?
You good with that?
Now, those corrections, you want to make a motion?
You already did.
Yeah, that's what I did,
Okay.
to accept them with the corrections.
You
With
have
those
that,
corrections
Catherine?
on page 6, yep.
Yeah.
Catherine?
Sue and I will consult.
You have
We're
it
good.
under
I'll
control?
I got it, I got it.
Thank you.
Motion
All right.
to accept the September 6th.
Wait a minute, we didn't take a vote on that.
We did, 5-0.
We did.
We
No,
did.
your reconsideration was 5-0,
No, the
but you
other one
didn't
was
take a
5-0
vote.
too.
It was?
We did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
There's a virtual vote.
Play the tape.
okay. Then we have
I didn't hear
public and non-public of 9/6/11.
Motion to accept the minutes of 6 September.
Second by Nick. Is there any corrections, questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous, 500. Okay, we have that. Now, we also have to take a vote on a ordinance. Okay, go on our selectmen's discussion, new business. I'm just gonna go through this because now we have a full board. New business. Okay, we're going to be old business. We need a vote on the ordinance for no parking on the west side of Prospect Street from middle of 6 Prospect Street to South Mass Street.
I'll make a motion that we move forward with the ordinance as presented.
As amended.
As well, oh, right, as amended.
Was
we
presented
amended.
at the
Correct,
first,
right.
right.
As amended.
Okay. Is there a second?
Yes, I will second that.
Discussion, Nick?
I received several phone calls, and this is again just for discussion, from two, in fact, from residents on the street, and I just want to bring it forward, their comments. One caller felt that eliminating that parking from the corner to the middle of 5, I believe, in that, the 200 feet, will simply serve to move the problem further up the street. And then the second caller, I received a call from the owner of 5, and he expressed an interest to try to work with the owner of 6 Prospect Street in an effort to correct the issue without having to go through the process of a permanent ordinance and parking ban. So that wasn't, whether or not that can occur, cones, signs during services saying, not to park. I don't know the legality of that. I would leave that to the police chief, but I'm just relaying those are the comments that I heard, so the board can consider those in their deliberations.
Is there a reason these people didn't show up at the public hearings?
They weren't aware.
Oh.
They said that they hadn't seen the public notices and they weren't aware that.
Were they aware of this conversation, that this was something that was going on? Were they any discussions with anybody that this was?
Well, they understood the circumstances and why this came before the board, and they felt that it was a problem that could be solved outside of an ordinance change, cooperatively.
Nick? Scott, I'm sorry.
Okay, with all due respect, then why did we go down this long and winding road to get to the point where we had 2 hearings, had a police chief work on an ordinance, and again.
I'm not taking a position.
No, I know you're not, you're relaying it, but I think it's,
This came out of highway safety too, right? So there was a public
right,
process there too.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that I appreciate that, and I think it's a last faith or a last ditched effort to try to work it out amicably with 2 parties, but I think we've gone down that road, no pun intended, and I think we've tried that, and it didn't work. So as much as I appreciate that offer, I think it got to the point, it got to a head where it came to this whole thing where we need an ordinance to limit parking on a very specific property, and I personally am in favor of proceeding.
Okay, I'm gonna make one comment, and I'm gonna ask the chief very briefly, because I think that we're beyond the point of public hearings. Okay? We've had the public hearings, but this is something that's come up and it needs to be addressed. Okay? Part of the process that we go through to get to the point where we are, especially when these issues come through highway safety. In the past, when we had these issues, highway safety is usually the chief and somebody else, or all the people that are in the affected area are contacted, and there's a discussion with those individuals, okay, through this process. If they have concerns, those concerns are tried to be addressed through the process. And we try to get to the point where we come to a public hearing where we've got the best that we can do with the situation that we're dealing with. We have the public hearing, we have a second public hearing, and here is where we are today. And it's an excellent point of what you're saying, Scott. And I'm just gonna ask the chief, have I depicted the way the process works? Is this, have I described it?
Very
accurate,
thank you.
Okay, thank you, chief. Just so that everybody here at this table knows that this is the process. And the only other thing I could say is that if the board chooses to go forward with this, and there are issues, as you said, that it moves it down the road, okay, then we're gonna have to address it, and maybe we'll repeal the ordinance. I don't know what it is, and
That's exactly where I was going. Ditto.
Yes, and my point to add to the discussion here is, we have a window, a time window here to
Right.
say yes or no to the ordinance. And if we don't act tonight, the whole thing might start all over again. 2 public hearings,
So
if we
my,
wish.
my motion stands.
Can I ask a question, because I just heard a different address today, and it says 6 Prospect in the ordinance. Is it midway on 6 Prospect, in front of 6 Prospect?
6 Prospect, the measuring is midway from 6, but it's actually on 5 Prospect side, the western side. But the measurement is
6.
6.
Okay,
Okay.
so we have a motion,
I made the motion.
and we have a second, and we've been having discussion. Is there any further discussion? Any other comments?
Effective date, on the printed one I put in your signature folder, said when signs installed.
And
Just wanted to
that's
point that
normal.
out.
They haven't seen that yet, because here it is, because.
Oh.
No, that's normal, because the ordinance cannot by statute go
I
into
just wanted to point
effect
it out because it was
until
different.
signage is up.
I just wanted to point it out because it was different from what was in your, it was left
And then when you
blank.
take the vote, I'll sign it.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It's unanimous, 5-0-0. Okay,
So you notify Public Works to get a sign. Somebody will measure the 185 feet.
okay, next item is committee reports, EDC.
Yes, EDC met, and honestly, it's in the packet, but part of it was, they first discussed was their quarterly newsletter. And part of the newsletter is that it was reviewed, and that some of the things we talked about was what we wanted included in the newsletter. And what they want to get out there, first of all, is about the 79E to businesses, so they have an understanding that that is available to them, in their toolkit. We also, it looks like we're gonna be adding the calendar events, which is one of the things I spoke about. As a newsletter goes out, we should have those calendar events. They're gonna talk about the 79E. They're gonna talk about the 250th. In other words, it's just a small email that goes out there and lets people know what's going on. They
It's an
also,
electronic email, right?
correct.
Okay.
Right. The other,
Newsletter.
what's the only email I know?
Electronic newsletter, I meant.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. I said email, so I'm not good.
Okay.
They also spoke about updating the website to the business directory. That's a project that's been going on this summer, where they took all the businesses, and members of the committee have been contacting local businesses, making sure that one, they're still in business. 2, the other part would be, do we have the proper address, email address, and do they have websites so they can update the site on the town website. Also, one of the big things that they spoke a lot about is this video interviews. It's called Getting to Know Goffstown Businesses, and they've been talking about this. In fact, Brian Hanson, one of the newer members of the board, was he was the one that brought this forward, where they're looking to go into businesses. Well, when I say they're not just gonna walk in, they're gonna set up an appointment, obviously, and they want to, just ask them, a series of questions. Be like a 5 or 7 minute video about things about their business, things about town, and what they find important with that. And part of that, they're talking about video streaming that piece also. So as people get more familiar with going to the website, they'll be able to, one, have better information regarding businesses. We'll have emails being that the community the business community can communicate, and we can get information out to them. And also we can put out these video streams, and I don't know how fast or how quick they'll be made, because that in itself will be a process, but it will be, as far as I understand. Andre, you're gonna go out there and film these?
Whatever you want.
No, I'm just joking, but they'll go out and film these, so, and then they're, at this point, I don't know if they met with,
I don't think so, yeah.
okay.
Steve, can I interrupt? So you're updating all the business emails and websites, so we have a listing on
Yes.
our town website, which I've seen. But one of the things that, you know, again, I think we could make an improvement on is, it needs to be a little bit more pronounced on the home page and a little more flashy, where it's like Goffstown Yellow Pages or something, where you can click on it, takes you right to it. It's kind of hidden in a way. You gotta find it, you have to go to, economic development, and then you gotta, it's like, and I think if we're truly
You want a
trying
link
to.
right on the homepage? of
Right,
the
if we're
town
truly
website?
trying to do this, then maybe when the 250th anniversary comes off, we
Put a
put,
yellow page
we
one.
put, you know, Goffstown Yellow Pages, and you click right on that. So if you need to get your appliance fixed, you know that there are a couple of places in Goffstown that fix appliances. If you need a florist, here are the florists, you know?
You make a good point, and like anything else, it's a work in process on how it goes, and I think the first step is to update it. And there's been a lot of talk about how to have it more than just a bland site, in other words, and that's what a lot of that EDC is talking about, in other words. And Derek, I wish Derek was here, because he would explain it a lot better, but there's a way that it won't just be, hey, a link, you can actually, each business can like send in a card or a picture, and in other words, it could be more
Instead of logo
personalized.
or something, right.
It'd be more personalized, and it's also that question of, is this something that we go further on, down the road, and there's, people can put discounts in there if used through business sites? I mean, there's lots that can be done with a website, but we're just at that initial stage of getting it updated and being able to communicate, and then we can go, then the EDC will go forward and look at it and say, what other.
Right, no, I know,
what other-
it's really good, but it's just, most people don't know that it's there, that's all.
It's hidden, you gotta look for
Yeah,
it.
but it's great. I mean,
Yeah.
for those folks who don't know, if you need anything from automotive to computer repairs to florist, it's on there, if they're in Goffstown.
Any other questions of Steve?
And you can sign up for this newsletter, huh?
Yep.
And the only other piece left here was just that, nothing new to us, that, Tony Martz, he was here to provide information about Southern New Hampshire planning regarding the corridor study, which we had already seen also,
Right.
so. That was
Any-
it.
Any other questions? Okay, and planning board, unfortunately, I wasn't able to make, so I don't have a report on that. Scott, we talked earlier about
It's in there.
alternate to the planning board, and Steve made a motion
You
to
did.
nominate you, and it passed unanimously.
Well, that would be good, because I'm on the budget committee, and that usually takes up quite a bit of time, and they also meet on Thursdays, so.
Well, the thing with this one is,
He's
you'd be a
talking himself
participating member on it, you go to the planning board
Every-
meetings,
I,
you
well,
but
every
you
other
can't vote,
Thursday.
unless I'm not there.
right. It does raise an interesting question, is when you read some of these statutes, though, and I don't know if you're joking around or not, but if you aren't, then I will proceed.
Right next to the frosty
Yeah.
costume.
Well, when you read these statutes, do we need to actually vote to say that if you are not there at a meeting, then Selectman Pierce is your alternate? And if Selectman Pierce is not there, then this board
Phil.
designates Selectman Camposano, and literally take a vote,
But-
and just have all of us have the
Phil,
ability to do
The,
it.
the answer to that is yes. We have to officially appoint an alternate, but Phil brought up a very good point. Many of the actions at the planning board have been reviewed 1, 2, or 3 times before it comes to a vote. And if I were to step in there on the 3rd session to vote, I would probably have to not vote, because I haven't been part of that discussion.
Correct.
Right, I mean,
Going
you
back.
don't have to, but you could leave in a precarious
hear
situation
you.
where
Someone
the
could appeal
applicant,
something,
if it's
right.
denied, the applicant, and let's say it's, for example, it's a 4-3 vote. Applicant could say that he shouldn't have voted. It just
Well-
causes, and I don't anticipate to miss many meetings.
Right.
And if you were gonna be the alternate, what you can do is participate in every meeting. You sit with the planning board, but you don't vote. So that, I just left it to anybody that didn't have enough meetings to go to, so that's why you were nominated.
Okay, good. On that
Could we
note-
review the minutes on that?
Yeah, on that
Catherine?
note,
We can tell you that didn't happen.
It's not recorded in my minutes.
that being said, I think it would be a good idea for us to get on the record who is the alternate on the budget committee, or a line of progression here, so that it is official. I think the budget committee has historically been very amenable to, if they know that one of us can't be there, that the next, any selectman is.
But what
is
does the
gonna-
statute say about alternates? It may not even address an alternate for the budget.
For the budget committee, each such member may be represented by an alternate member designated by the respective board, who shall, when sitting, have the same authority as the regular member.
And we've done that
Same thing.
before.
Yeah.
I can recall a
These are
week
the- Those are
before.
the two, well, we used to, way back, appoint an alternate. When we did assignments, there was an alternate to planning board and budget committee appointed by the board.
I would just think that it would be better to have a designated alternate, and after that, take the vote to say, if that person can't, then any member of the board can step in. This way it's clean. We took a vote, we did it, and there's authority there from the board, so that happens. And this way, if there is a contentious vote, that no one's gonna go and question it.
You're talking about the planning board?
Both.
Well, the thing I came up with the planning board is, it's very seldom that I miss a meeting. This is the first meeting I've ever missed. And wasn't intentional, it was just.
No, but I don't think it hurts for us to have a couple of votes that are really housekeeping in nature, so that if it ever does get questioned, and again, it's a yearly thing, whereas to say, okay, you know, someone is your alternate, someone is my alternate on budget, and if those people cannot attend, then any member of the board is duly authorized to attend in their stead. I don't think that hurts. So you've already done the planning board one.
No, they haven't.
No, we
Oh.
haven't done the planning board one.
Uh-huh. I thought you were, okay.
Yeah, you,
See, I know you were going with the budget committee one too. He's vindictive, isn't he?
I actually thought about it when I read through the packet, saying, that's great for planning, but we need one for budget too.
Nick?
I was just gonna ask Sue, if you could run this through LGC, to just get one of their free advisories on. When I read this, the appointment number of terms of alternate members, it doesn't differentiate between the powers of an alternate selectman, and it kind of lumps everybody together, that they're all the same type of alternate. Remember, we talked about an alternate sitting at meetings and being appointed, and, you know, if there's anything that prohibits two selectmen theoretically from voting on a.
I think in 674, there is something that addresses it. I think there's something that's in there that it does state someplace in there that you can't have two members of the governing body on there.
Yes.
And it's the same thing, you can't have
Yes,
two members.
that I
of-
know for
But we
a
don't.
fact.
We have one plus an alternate.
Yeah, but you can't have you can't have an alternate, you can't have the Board of Selectmen rep and a selectman sitting in as an
Because you're
alternate.
only an
Yeah.
alternate to the
Right.
regular member.
Right. But I mean, you know. I
That's
mean-
all right, if we could just ask
Sure.
So Steve is gonna
LGC.
be the alternate to both? Is that how it's working, or?
Well, if you made that motion.
I'll make that motion.
Wait a minute, say that again.
Steve, Selectman Fournier will be the alternate to both if needed. Right?
Motion by Scott, have Steve be the.
Suggestion, maybe, Nick, at the next meeting, if someone wants to do it, they volunteer.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's, you know, as the chairman, when I I'm looking at assignments, it's not something that I really want to look at giving to somebody, you know.
what? I will go. I will go. I enjoy
The
that.
planning board and.
No,
the budget-
no, budget committee.
No, he said
Oh,
both.
no.
Yeah, I was waiting for
Okay, I'll amend it.
reaction.
Budget committee.
Alternate for budget committee?
I know, because it gets difficult, because when they start going to 2 nights a week, it gets difficult to get them all. I understand that. I'm willing to work with that.
All right, so that was you made a motion? Who'll make the you making the second?
Wait a minute, did we change
Yes,
the motion at
budget,
this point?
budget.
Okay.
Budget.
Motion by
I'll second
Scott,
Okay. Is there any discussion?
select Steve as.
Unless you want to go,
Point
Mr.
Steve.
Pierce, you have that look.
appoint
I'm
Steve.
Selectman Pierce,
Perfectly happy.
you sure? You got the look.
No, I'm
Alternate
perfectly
for-
happy.
Oh, he wants planning board.
Wants planning.
Okay, don't you want, okay.
Yeah, he does. He's
All
good
right.
with the maps.
All right, that's true.
Second by Nick.
Yes.
Yep, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion for Selectman Pierce to be the planning board alternate. Is that okay with you?
I-
How did I get into this?
No, I would rather wait till the next meeting and see, you know, to think about it and see if
He's
any.
the only one who can read the maps.
Well,
I'm just joking.
That's a good point.
what, that he can read the maps?
To read the maps.
Suggestion, I want to get out of this quickly.
That's what I said the next week.
Motion to
adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.